Hello?
Yes, are you ready to start?
Yeah, I'm ready. Sorry, I completely forgot that you sent it earlier.
Okay.
I think you already did.
Well, yeah, it's got the stream starting, so.
Oh,
But I'm
cool.
probably broadcasting. All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the reading room. We've got an after show from an awesome debate. It was pretty back and forward. It was pretty great, and it was Dok Deino over at Standing for Truth. And just before I get started, I did get a super chat come in really, really quickly. It was from Doki Doki Bible Club for a super sticker for $1.49. So thank you so much. Doki Doki has always been polite and respectful to me when I've been over there, which is sort of a nice surprise when I go over there. So I've got all the time in the world for them because they're always very nice. But welcome to the room. Hope you're doing well. And how are you, Doc? Suffering a little much. I'm so sorry. I am so sorry for that debacle. I don't know what to say. I think I had the sound turned on when we're in the background as well, which is just so professional.
Yep.
Yeah. I am suffering a tiny lot. Yeah. Just
But you survived.
for now.
Nice.
Hypothetically. Yeah, he just apparently experiments prove nothing and we can't model anything and just it was painful.
And magnetic fields have half-lives.
Yeah, they sure do. I've screamed enough about that already. Tapioca can attest.
I'm never gonna get it. That's gonna be the clip from that one.
Well, I wanted to know your feelings about it, and how you felt it went. And is there anything that you want to particularly focus on during this after show? And after I hear from you, just to let everybody know, after I hear from you, I'll open it up to anybody that wants to join. I know we've got the usual suspects on already, who are the sort of evolutionist crew that have. I think we've all been on Standing for Truth except for you, Ember. I think you're the only person, and Beansy, of course, the only person that hasn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. But you've definitely debated sort of relative subjects before and subjects like it before. So,
Yeah, I just don't like the environment over there.
I can't blame you. The chat, I mean, it really is, you know, if you're going in there, it is hard to sit and chat and be in there with all of the sort of accusations and nasty stuff coming in. But you know what I'm like. That rolls off my back, so you know I'm fine in there. But
oh yeah,
how did you feel?
That's not to say everybody's horrible either. Like, you know, there is people like Doki Doki.
Yes, absolutely.
He's always been the soul of courtesy.
Yeah, absolutely. A very, very nice person, and there are nice people over there. It's just, you know, you never remember the niceness, and you always remember the insults. It's just one of those things. And so I love seeing Doki Doki, and I love seeing all those people, you know, who are genuinely nice people. But yeah, Doc, is there anything you wanted to focus on? Anything that you wanted to cover, or are you just too much? Is your head too hurt to even think about it at the moment?
Honestly, I feel like I was arguing with a rock.
That's fair.
That is my feel for the debate. He said things, seemed to forget them by the time I got to question him on them. That happened at least twice. And just no, analogies seem lost on him along with a host of other things. And I am probably not going to debate for a while, both just because work schedule is very busy now that college students are back. And Yeah, I'm working on stuff. So.
Doc, did you agree beforehand, like how long the open discussion portion was gonna be? Because it kind of just seemed like y'all were gonna keep going until like it didn't seem like Donnie was gonna even stop that.
So initially, I suggested like 30 to 40 minutes, but TRock wanted it to go as long as he wanted, and I just didn't want to fight him on that.
No, that's fair. Were you sort of asking to end it at the end? Were you saying, "Hey, that's it, I've had enough," kind of thing? Is that what happened? Because it seemed like it.
I think somewhere I just got tired of repeating myself to no avail. I'm not sure if I verbalized that or not, but that's how I felt.
I've been there as well in debates where like the other person is giving their concluding statement that just it's just exhausting to even listen to. I mean, TRock went on for like 10 minutes in his concluding statement, and he was just repeating all the same points that you had already debunked, and he clearly had not listened to anything you say, or like, you know, basically it was like having no effect, like you said, arguing with the rock. And I know how exhausting and frustrating that is to sound, so it sounded like you were just done with it after
I am a bit disappointed in myself that I slow motion blew up at him, but at the same time, just my brain was collapsing.
No, I understand that. I understand. It's a lot harder than it seems to do debate, sort of at this level, especially, when it so much comes out that is so wrong, and it's easy to throw out this stuff. It's hard to actually sort of at real time sort of debunk it, kind of thing, and we can get into that. But what I'll do is,
well, I mean, I tried. He just wouldn't accept anything I said. Anything.
No, I
understand
that. I understand that. I will put the link up. I think
I'm gonna be eating a snack so
the
Tylenol doesn't kill my stomach.
I mean,
and Doc, I don't think he actually read that paper in regards to the carbon-14 background testing, because they didn't just test diamonds.
No, you don't.
Yeah, he just looked at the abstract and he wouldn't listen to me when I told him they tested other things.
Honestly, I'm surprised he even looked at the abstract.
Someone called Ember. I'm not sure if they're welcome on this channel. They're a bit of a problem maker, to be honest with you. But they're a member for 3 months. Congratulations, and sub to Doc. And definitely sub to Doc, because he did a fantastic job. And I approve of using this member super chat to plug Doc's channel. I am all in favor of that. So,
well, thank you.
Even though you could have you could have used it to plug mine, but you know, never mind.
I will say also sub to Ember, sub to Mark, and sub to Tapioca Weasel, because I think it'd be funny to just have a channel with thousands of subscribers and no content.
Well, for that
and it's
matter,
Jackson Rowe in the house,
who also has a channel.
What's going on, guys?
Who also has a channel. Yeah, Jackson, how are you, mate?
Doing pretty good. I looked into a bunch of papers on carbon-14 during and after the debate, so I found some funny stuff. So I'm going to talk about that later. But I'm doing pretty good.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
If you next time he wants to bring up that we only analyze small scale floods, is 150,000 square kilometers small scale?
Well, it's small on the scale of the Earth, apparently.
Well, you would expect the things that water leaves behind, to be more exacerbated the larger the flood, rather than non-existent. I don't understand how that reasoning works. That when you have a small-scale flood, it leaves certain telltale signatures, but when it becomes as large as the Earth, then it doesn't leave any. How does that work? I don't understand that.
Yeah, we've seen local floods from riverbanks, and we can go all the way up to the Iraqi floodplains. The largest one was approximately 150,000 square kilometers, and that is massive. There's no way you could comprehend just how big that is on a local level.
I mean, also just hypothetically, if the flood at its peak wasn't changing the bottom at all, which no, it would, but let's say it didn't. The initial surges would leave very recognizable scars that would be preserved if the height of the flood wasn't affecting anything.
And I believe it's Andrew coming into the room. How are you doing, Andrew?
Oh, he's coming tonight.
Hello. Can you hear me okay?
Yep, absolutely.
Just Beamsy and I are both biting our tongues very hard.
How did he know?
I already joke. It's okay.
Because you're Beamsy. It's a testable prediction. Been verified over many of these rooms. Exactly how you'll respond to someone mentioning that particular mineral.
One of the
Good
moments
times.
that I thought was funny in the debate was at the very end when TRock said that he didn't appeal to anything like supernatural or whatever, but his whole thing with like the magnetic field, with where it starts to decay, his entire conception was that it was like started when God supernaturally turned water into like the Earth's core and started the magnetic field at 100%, and now it's just exponentially decaying. But like that's what he believes. I mean, he's saying he doesn't bring anything supernatural, but isn't that inherent in all of his belief system?
Well, let's talk about magnets, because he's sort of saying that heat would destroy the magnet, and that is kind of true when you're talking about permanent magnets, the type that he's talking about, when you have a ferrous metal that has been magnetically charged by having electrons put across it, basically. That you lose the electrons and heat can dissipate. They make them move randomly and then dissipate it. But nobody's saying that the dynamo is a permanent magnet. What they're saying is that it generates electrical charge. It's an electromagnet. And heat doesn't destroy electromagnets. Turning off the charge does. And this is what Doc was trying to point out, that it fluctuates all the time as the magnet. Because an electromagnet, you turn off the electricity and it just stops, right? Just turns off. It's not magnetic anymore. It's not a permanent magnet. It only is a magnet when those electrons are flowing over it. So he doesn't understand like that the whole idea of a dynamo is providing electrical charge. He doesn't understand that. So heat, if it's providing electrical charge, it's an electromagnet, and heat is not going to dissipate an electromagnet. So, it's so silly.
So the Earth's inner core, there's a point where you reach, I think it's the Curie point, where you reach a point where it does get too hot. Like the inner core of Earth is past the Curie point, but the Earth's magnetic field is not produced by the inner core. It's like in the mantle, which is not at the Curie point. So the physics is just completely against what TRock was trying to say.
And I mean, like, I don't understand the physics. I'm just going to get that out there.
Doc, all you got to know is that a moving charge produces a magnetic field. And in the mantle, there are plenty of moving charges.
That I roughly understand. But just, like, we know how old these rocks are. And they're older than 6,000 years. And the rocks leave a record of the magnetic strength and direction. I showed that, and he just said, nope.
Yeah, he just doesn't believe any of that.
Well, I do have some criticisms if you're up for it, Doc.
Please do.
Are you sure?
Prepared a bit more. Go ahead.
Well, no, the preparation wasn't it. I think some of the things that you said, you alluded to and expected him to understand, not realizing that he needed it absolutely spelled out for him. Like, when you were asking questions about, and it's gonna slip my mind, I wasn't making notes. You were asking him questions about something one after another, and you sort of expected him to follow the dots and put it together, and he was never going to do that. Like, you had to actually articulate what it was that you were getting at rather than expecting him to join. Because I was in the chat and sort of I saw it and went, yeah, you need to actually say what your conclusion is.
So like I was saying, think through process A and then think through process B. And then this, or I should have said, this is how we add them together, or
right.
Oh, was it the age of the rock and the magnetism?
You really have to hold his hand through each step in logic.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was a
He didn't seem to understand logical fallacies either.
It was an analogy that you were making about the age radiometric dating. Oh, the ruler and the picometer, right? Brilliant point. Yeah. Absolutely brilliant point. Right. Because he was saying, then it's not accurate. And you're sort of saying, hey, a ruler is accurate even though we can't use it to measure a picometer. Like people in chat were just saying, then it's not accurate. And it's like, no, he's trying to tell you something with this analogy, but they weren't putting that together. They were missing the point, right? That you need to say, hey, just like a ruler can't measure picometers, if you use this radiometric dating for measuring something small, you won't be able to do it because it just does not have the ability to measure that. So that is like how a ruler is like you've got to actually draw that diagram for them because they were just missing the point in chat. TRock was missing the point. You're just saying, yes, that, it's like a picometer, like a ruler not being able to measure picometers. They did not put that together. Like they did not make that connection. But it is
they
a
seem
really
to really
point.
struggle with the idea that science is inherently statistical and has limits for some reason. Wonder why that is.
Well, it's more like if the thing that they don't want to be true isn't comprehensive enough to cover every single scenario ever, then it must not be accurate. And nothing, no measurement sort of thing that we have will cover every single situation kind of thing, every single
right.
Scale,
they tend to have a lot of absolutist thinking.
That's why no one today uses clocks, because they can't measure nanoseconds.
Well, they're raised in an environment that extols absolute certainty, and anything less than that cannot be trusted.
And like he couldn't understand that we don't use degraded zircons for dating because they're degraded. Like,
did he say that?
Not compute to him. Like, I'm still not sure on that.
Yeah, I think that his idea was sort of, well, you throw them out on if they conflict with what you think already, and he didn't realize that what you were saying is that we can tell by other means, like the physical structure, how they've been degraded. Like he just wasn't getting that.
Yeah, I think
the funny thing was he read it from a paper that explained it.
The thing that you got to learn about TRock is that when he reads a paper, he's reading it through his own lens and his own confirmation biases. He's not really reading what the paper is saying. Like when you want to show him a paper, you really have to hammer home the point you're trying to make using the paper. Like just asking him to read the paper is not going to lead anywhere, because he's just going to read the paper exactly with what he already thought beforehand.
I've noticed a lot of
call me hopelessly optimistic, but maybe call me hopelessly optimistic, but I expect an adult human to be able to comprehend things that most people I know comprehended in kindergarten.
You are definitely hopelessly optimistic.
That is hopelessly optimistic. I'm sorry.
Without exaggeration, my 5-year-old sister understands geophysics better than that man.
I don't know what your sister's level at, but that's possibly, I mean, he was basically telling us that the varbs, there was another way that the varbs could form. It was called something flow, great flow or something, but did not give any turbulent flow, but did not give any kind of evidence whatsoever of how this worked. Couldn't explain how it worked. Couldn't explain anything about it. Ignored you when you said, hey, we know that water wasn't at this level because of all these reasons, and just said turbulent flow. I would have liked to see you hammer him more on that. Like, how does it work?
I forgot to point out. Yeah, he doesn't know what a turbulent flow is compared to a laminar flow.
Well, it's all about the speed, you see.
There was so much. I couldn't keep up with this stupid. I'm sorry.
And I totally get where you're coming from.
And when you mentioned the flume chamber, the one thing you have to realize, the flume chambers they were using are circular flume chambers, not the actual rectangular ones you use in scientific experiments, because circular ones don't present a model that you can just run them back and forth and make it decorative shapes in any way possible.
And welcome to a Dr. Tapioca Weasel, who is apparently a doctor of not being triggered by magnets. And I don't believe you on that. I think you got to hand your doctorate back, mate, because someone was all capsing in the chat earlier, and I'm pretty sure it wasn't me. But lots of love, Dr. Tapioca Weasel. How are you? And that's highly contentious, sir. Highly contentious. And I've got a couple of things to go through just quickly. Ember, thank you for somebody who did it. Oh, that doesn't come up. Yeah, my bad.
Yep.
Farron Sellers gave a super chat for US $9.99. Cheers with a chink, and that is not coming up in my feed for StreamYard, which I'm kind of upset about. So I can't put it on the screen, which I'm very upset about. So I'm not sure if my StreamYard is working, but I'm so sorry. I would like to put it up. Give me 1 sec. Did it come up in the normal chat? Is my question.
Ozzy's the one that gave him.
An Aussie gifted 5 memberships. Yeah, Aussie Gold.
Yep, Aussie Gold.
Yeah, I have a rookie question. Do you have to hit join the chat to join the chat for StreamYard?
Do you have to join the chat to join the chat for StreamYard?
Connect.
That sounds like a tautology. What are we talking about?
It does.
It sounds. You know what? I'm bad at technology. Is basically
He's
what
talking about on StreamYard. Does he need to click join the chat?
Oh, yeah, you. If you're not already
you
logged
have
in,
to give
you
it
do.
consent to connect your YouTube so that you can comment directly from StreamYard.
Oh, right.
As long as we're highlighting people in the chat, I just want to highlight TRock's neck. You have made me laugh many times, sir, and I will personally be donating to your fund for a decapitation.
Oh my!
Also,
but yeah,
just a little
Hillhugger
thing to
gifted
Beamsy
a
real
membership
quick.
too. Hillhugger gifted first. It hit Ozzy, and then Ozzy did the typical neutron reaction and gifted 5 more.
Oh, it's like okay. Hey, something I want to discuss, and this hits close to home for me personally, and I really want to say it. Can I just point out that TRock does not understand what a false dichotomy is, or a false trichotomy, or a false quadrotomy, or whatever the hell he was talking about? Like, seriously, I don't understand. Like,
can you review for us? Because
Well,
I missed it. I didn't see the whole thing.
So Dr. Deino was sort of saying, hey, through observing this, we can tell that this occurred and not this other process. So what he's using is induction, right? So a dichotomy is only used in cases of deduction, where you can say, hey, if we eliminate everything else, it has to be this one thing. So a true dichotomy is things like, oh, it was either a flood or not a flood kind of thing, right? But when you're saying, hey, we've falsified this particular thing, and this evidence shows you're using induction, you're not using data. Like he just doesn't understand what it is. So and so I don't understand how when he's pointing this out that he doesn't get it. And here's the man of the hour. Here's TRock, presuming it is TRock and not Peter in a disguise or something. How are you?
Doing great. Thanks for inviting me. I mean, I could stick around long, but I'll
yeah, no worries.
A little bit.
So, do you understand what a false dichotomy is?
Sure.
Right. So, it's only used in cases of deduction, right? Like when you're deducting things away from one another. So, if you say, hey, it was either a flood or it was this other thing kind of thing, all right? That's a false dichotomy because it could be other things. But if you're saying, hey, the evidence doesn't point towards one thing, but it points towards this instead, you're not doing a false dichotomy because you're using induction and not deduction.
Okay, so whenever I'm saying false dichotomy, essentially what I'm saying in a more general context is that the argument is giving 2 options when other options exist.
Sure.
In the simplest form, that's what a false dichotomy is.
Not if you're giving sort of evidence for one of those options, which was what Doc was doing. He was saying, hey, we know it's not the one you're suggesting. We know that from the evidence that this is the one that is correct because of this evidence. You're not saying, hey, there can't logically be any other way. What you're saying that isn't inductively considering the evidence that we've seen before, it points to this one.
Okay, well, I don't feel the need to defend that terribly much. I'm just going to say that in a false dichotomy, it is a false dichotomy if you present only two options and you claim that the argument or that the evidence only fits one of those two.
No, that's induction.
Either way, it's still a dichotomy. You're giving two choices and saying the evidence only fits this one, when a third option is available that the evidence also fits.
Yeah, but logically, but if you're using deduction logically, that is true, because you're saying logically it can't, it could have been magic monkeys from outer space, like there's no reason why. But if you're saying, hey, the evidence points to this one instead of the other one, then that is induction, and you're not making a logical argument, you're making an inductive argument.
Right, like not all explanations are equally likely or equally supported by the same data. Like, that's not a thing.
Right.
It's kind of like the 50-50 thing. If you don't know the odds, it doesn't mean it's 50-50. Also, I've been asked to say Titan Uranus's name, so yay.
Oh, okay.
Yay, Titan. Also, subscribe to Titan for funsies.
Yeah, he doesn't make any content, but I'm subscribed just for the lols. I've got to put him. Yeah,
he makes more content than I do.
That's not a boast. I don't think he's put out a single video.
I make content
exactly one video.
Oh, did Doc drop out? Oh, Doc's back. Okay.
I think he said he's going to try and reload. So there we go.
Yeah, the YouTube chat was frozen for me, so I reloaded.
Can I ask?
Yeah, YouTube chat's ending.
TRock, can I ask you a question real quick?
Sure, go ahead.
Yes or no? Are there moving charges in Earth's mantle?
Moving charges?
Yeah.
Possibly, yeah.
And those would create a magnetic field, yeah?
In the mantle?
A magnetic field would be created by moving charges in Earth's mantle.
In a very straightforward sense, yes, that is possible.
All right. Thank you for showing the mechanism of the dynamo.
That's not the mechanism of the dynamo, though. One of the more important points there is how much magnetic field strength you can get out of the mantle. The mantle is not made of iron and nickel. It's the solid state of iron and nickel that provides the strength of the magnetic field. So you can have magnetism.
The magnetic field largely arises from the outer core, which is liquid.
Let TRock finish. Let him finish. I want to be fair to everybody.
Sorry.
Let him finish, and
so
we'll go to you next, Andrew. That's not a problem.
You need iron in a solid state to have an appreciable magnetic field.
No, that's dumb. Sorry.
Well, Andrew, you can go.
No, I was just saying, because the magnetic field largely arises from the liquid outer core, which is, like Grayson was saying, moving charges from the iron particles moving around there. So that's where the magnetic field arises. It doesn't arise from the solid inner core, which is still iron and nickel, but you don't have charges moving around, so you don't have a magnetic field being generated.
And it has the Curie point in the inner core.
So,
right, yeah, that too.
One of the big physics problems I have with saying something like that is that we don't make magnets out of things like mantle material for a reason.
Yeah, because it'd be too hot and reasons.
No,
what?
Because when you cool it, you have a chance you can align the molecular state through heat treatment to optimize the magnetic field in the material. If you don't do that, if you take the hot form and cool it without aligning it, and it's not aligned in the liquid form or in the fluid form, it's not there. The particles aren't aligned enough to do anything to give you an appreciable magnetic field. So if you wanted one, you could optimize it by aligning them through a heat treating process, cooling it and freezing them in that position. Then you could get a more appreciable field out of it. But we don't make magnets like that for a reason.
None of that is analogous to what's going on in the outer core. Like none of that. You're not cooling anything into a solid state. It's all still liquid, hot, and very high pressure.
That's exactly the problem.
And additionally, you're also already in the presence of the Earth's magnetic field. So all of these things are going to be aligned with the field.
I seriously doubt you can find an intelligent paper that describes it that way.
This is electromagnetism.
Like law of induction, like Faraday's law of induction.
Here, wait, question. Question. Can you give me a definition for intelligence? Like what is the bottom bar for intelligent to you?
Come on, guys. It's a real simple deal. You guys are really good about pressing the opposition for a scientific source for your claim. All I'm saying is, if that's a legitimate argument to make, provide me a source. If you can find me a source that says the mantle material provides the basis for our electromagnetic field, I will concede the point entirely if they make a legitimate argument in that paper.
Tapioca, you do physics. Can you find a few?
I don't know why we're talking about the mantle. I don't know if it is the mantle.
Yeah, same.
Geomagnetic dynamo theory is incredibly difficult and complicated, but it's not like black magic. Okay, it's like complex, just devilishly difficult differential equations having to do with, electromagnetic forces within various media. But it takes place normally, as far as I can tell, within the outer core, not within the mantle.
Yeah, the outer core.
The mantle isn't moving around. The outer core is moving around.
Well, it is. It's just not.
Well, not on these time scales though. Like you need like a fluid that's like moving, somewhat turbulently, I would imagine. And turbulence, by the way, is not characterized by speed. It's characterized by the onset of chaos in the system. But, or also by, a differential sort of structure of, for example, like vortices that allow you to transport energy from microscopic scales to macroscopic scales efficiently. Like that's sort of what turbulence is in another sense. But these things are occurring in the outer core, and I don't know what the outer core is made of because I'm not a geophysicist or anything, but I think there's some iron there, right? Am I wrong? Or nickel?
It's still largely iron and nickel.
Let me comment on that real quick. So whenever you do paleomagnetism, you're looking for particles called magnetites that align themselves from the magnetic field. They don't align themselves from their own magnetic field. They align themselves from an external magnetic field source. So there's a basic addition process you can do for magnetism, and that is where you literally take iron magnets or rare earth magnets, doesn't matter, but you basically stack them so that they stick together normally, so that the norths are all facing in the same direction, whatever. What you find out is that the field strength increases in direct proportion to the number and size of magnets that you stack in that way. The point being then that in order to get an appreciable field from a very dirty iron source, you have to have a lot of molecules aligned. A lot of them.
Well, we're not talking about solid iron particles, though.
Yeah.
Right.
We're not talking about a net magnetization being due to the alignment of the microscopic magnetic moments of the constituent particles. That's not how this is forming. Hold on, no, T-Rock, stop.
T-Rock, let him finish.
So that is how like a ferromagnet forms, but it is not, for example, how an electromagnet forms. This is much more comparable to how an electromagnet forms. We're talking about the motion of the charges, because this is a massive rotating and convecting mass of fluid conductor metal. It's a neutral plasma in a lot of senses, honestly, because the structure of the atoms, you have the structure of the nuclei and the structure of all of the electrons is fairly decoupled in a lot of senses, at least the valence ones. So you have just a sort of electron plasma that is interspersed throughout this this sort of iron core, and it's all electrically sort of neutral on net, but that doesn't change the fact that you get all sorts of crazy dynamics that happen.
I'd like to share my screen for a second and read some.
Well, I just want to add, just quickly, I just want to add that I've talked about this with you before, T-Rock, that you look at the Earth as if it's a permanent magnet, and I've sort of said, hey, it's an electromagnet, not a permanent. Like I was saying earlier in the stream, if you turn off the electricity to electromagnet, it just stops working. But sort of the problems that you're bringing up with permanent magnets, like the decay of the electron field, don't apply to electromagnets. Like as long as it's got charge going, it's good. So it's sort of weird. But I will let you respond. I'll just get Grayson's thing up quickly.
Yeah, this basically says exactly what Mark was just saying. I just want to read it really quick. This is from a source here, the Geodynamo for non-geophysicists. So we should all be able to understand from the European
We'll maybe
Journal
link
of
it in
Physics.
private chat as well.
Yeah, this should be an intelligent enough source.
Thank you.
The magnetic field of the Earth does not originate from a permanent magnet. It is caused by electric currents, which are generated in the same way as with a self-excited dynamo by the movement of an electrical conductor in a magnetic field. The geodynamo is driven by the thermal convection of the liquid iron inside the Earth. There you have it. I will link this in the private chat.
If it functioned like a static magnet, then Venus, Mars, other planets whose magnetic fields have weakened as the planets cooled wouldn't have the weakened fields as the planets cooled, because the atoms would just be in line.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question real quick?
Well, I want to give T-Rock the opportunity to answer that.
Yeah.
So, do you have anything to sort of say in response to that?
Sure. Number one, I never claimed that the Earth's magnetic field came from a permanent magnet. I never once said that. Actually, what I argued was that an electrical current passes through the Earth. It collapses and induces a magnetic field. The magnetic field in turn collapses and reproduces the current, albeit at a lower strength, because some of the energy is lost to heat. And so I wouldn't call that a permanent magnet at all. I would call it it's just like I said, I would consider the core of the Earth to be very dirty iron. And I would also consider it to be the source. Now, I really do appreciate you guys posting this paper. I'll take a look at it for sure. It looks like there's quite a bit of reading to be done, but I'll just say for the time being, I do see the claim that the paper makes, but in order to prove that, you're going to need quite a bit of empirical data. In other words, real-time measurements to substantiate that claim.
Oh,
Okay,
sorry.
so wait.
Really quick, speaking of papers,
Wait,
Boomsy, what did you say about the paper I shared in the debate about the experiment that checked diamonds for carbon-14?
I'll go later. Jackson was going to jump in.
Oh,
Okay,
sorry.
Jackson.
Sorry.
Yeah, I have something kind of about that on that line. Let's say, just for sake of argument, TRock, that the diamonds were showing intrinsic carbon. Okay, let's just grant you that. What about this? Here's from a paper in 1995. It's citing another paper in 1992, Buchan's 1992. It says the Isotrace laboratory reported an apparent age of an empty aluminum target holder to be 85,000 years old. So how is nothing 85,000 years old? Doesn't that kind of deals with the background?
I apologize, Jackson. I didn't get to hear a bunch of that. I had an interruption here on my end.
Okay, I can repeat it if you want.
Okay.
Okay. Let's say, okay, let's forget about diamonds for a second. This is from a paper in 1995, but it's citing a paper from 1992. It says the Isotrace laboratory reported an apparent age of an empty aluminum target holder to be 85,000 years old. And it's talking about the background noise. So are we saying that the nothing would be 85,000 years old?
No, what I was pointing out during the live conversation was that if you have discernible background radiation that you know truly know should not be, I wouldn't consider diamonds something you truly know can't have carbon-14 in them. I would start with something that shouldn't have any carbon period in it and use that as a sample. So anyway, the point here then is if you have a tray holder and you get anomalous reading like that, what would you normally do to eliminate that as a contributing factor to obscuring your age assignments to actual samples? You would basically repeat the test over and over across a broad number of the tray holders, and then see if you can mathematically eliminate that in your calibration curve for the samples. So you would know it's not 85,000 years old. You would know that you're picking up a signal that you shouldn't be picking up.
All right. Well, they're trying to calibrate it with tests like these and with diamonds.
Sure, and that's fair. That's what should be done. But 85,000 is a far cry from the 30-ish thousand numbers that you can get from diamonds.
What do you mean?
6,000. So my problem is with all of this, TRock, is that you've sort of picked at sort of mainstream science and brought up things that you have problems with in mainstream science. But what you're not actually doing is presenting any evidence that like the Earth is actually 6,000 years old. Like there's no science that will back that up. There's no papers written. There's no actually peer-reviewed sort of people out there sort of saying this. The big thing that I have is you're sort of saying, hey, this can be inaccurate, and we're aware that radiometric dating can be accurate within certain degrees. But even if it's inaccurate for 100,000 years or 2 million years, it gets you nowhere near the 6,000 that you're claiming. So, what I want to see is some actual scientific evidence that this Earth is 6,000 years old.
Okay, so you want me to respond to that?
If you want, sure.
Sure. So I don't think you actually characterized my argument correctly at all. I iterated very clearly during this particular debate and in past debates that there is no objective dating method. You cannot get 6,000 years or any other number from a quote unquote scientific dating method. There isn't one that does that. What I do instead, and I apologize to the audience here, but I understand that very clearly, so I don't spend a lot of time elaborating on that. But there are no objective dating methods. So what you do is you take methods that you think work and you compare them to known historic ages, and then you see if you can develop and calibrate a method that follows a historic context correctly. That's the best you can do. So the idea of 6,000 years obviously comes directly from the Bible, and you don't consider that science, and I get that. But what I'm doing instead, because you're right, there is nothing in the open secular literature that's going to do that. They don't acknowledge the problem. But that's why
it doesn't exist. Sorry.
So that's
Sorry.
why I go to geomagnetism and the other arguments that I made to show that there are constraints that put it well below the 4.5 billion year time frame. If they put it well below that and there are no objective dating methods that can give you an accurate age of anything, then you can draw your own conclusions. I can't prove to you that the Earth is 6,000 years if you reject the biblical history, but I can well demonstrate by scientific methods that the 2 points I just made. Number one, there are no truly objective dating methods. And two, the exercises that we can use empirical data on constrain the age to way less than 4.5 billion years.
Here,
Okay, so
Beamsy?
that's actually something that I want to get up, because you don't seem to understand what objective means. It means stance independent. So none of these dating methods are stance dependent. It doesn't matter what your stance is on them. They have a methodology that's independent of anybody's opinion on it. That's the thing, TRock. You think that it has to be 100% hyperaccurate to be objective, and that's not what objective means. It just simply means it's stance independent. And the results they get back aren't a matter of opinion. That's not what's happening. There are ways to sort of show contamination and things like that. That is a thing, but that isn't a matter of opinion either. It isn't sort of, well, some person just goes and decides what they're going to throw out and not. That isn't the criteria that they're using. It is as objective as anything possibly can be, which means stance independent. So the way that you're using that is in terms of absolutely certain, not objective. It is objective. It's just you're using that word wrong. So the whole idea that it follows, like the things that are using follows scientific methods, you're not, because the conclusions in the scientific papers do not make the same conclusions you do. What you are doing is you're going to papers, picking at them, cherry picking from them, and then saying, I disagree with the conclusions that they've made off this data, and this data. That isn't scientific methodology. That is cherry picking, misinterpreting what they've said in the papers, and then coming to your own conclusions. I mean, you can do that. Just don't pretend it's science.
Yeah, we saw that in that paper about zircons, where you deliberately avoided lines that explained why they did what they did, and I called you out on it.
That's not what happened, Doc. That's not remotely what happened.
That is what happened.
Well, can you
yes.
give a
He
more
pointed
realistic
out.
explanation for why you avoided specific parts of the paragraphs that gave
Doc,
you an answer?
Doc, all we did was read through the abstract. And so in order...
Not the paper, you should.
Your paper, we read through the abstract.
I'm not talking about your paper. I'm talking about the paper you showed about zircons being able to be basically broken and have contaminants leak in.
Doc, I think you completely missed the point I was making with that. I understand you can measure contaminants. I understand you can determine which zircons are damaged and which ones are not so-called damaged. My point is that none of that in and of itself makes the case, because of the point that I was trying to get you towards, and that is that you can have undamaged, uncontaminated crystals form simultaneously with damaged, contaminated crystals. If that's true at all, then neither one of them serve as an objective dating method.
What?
Here, how about
that doesn't follow? That does not
just
follow.
wait, please. Really quick, Beamsy, you've actually done dating with zircons. Can you explain why we look for undamaged zircons to analyze?
Firstly, zircons don't form damaged. When you actually are looking at the zircons under X-rays, you're looking for radiation-damaged zircons. They don't just go, okay, we're forming this zircon and now they're damaged due to radiation. No. The radiation-damaged zircons are ones that have been damaged internally due to the radioactive decay. That has allowed the contaminants in over time. They were not formed damaged. That's why we don't use damaged zircons.
Do you mind if I respond to
So
that?
you're saying they formed first, and the ones that are pristine are the ones that have not allowed contaminants in when you're examining them under microscope, I think you said. Is that
under
right?
X-rays.
X-rays. Okay, so you're looking for places where the damage from radioactive decay has actually pierced the outside structure, allowing contaminants in. Have I got that right?
Yes.
But it really
Okay.
needs to be emphasized that just because some zircons can be damaged and contaminated does not invalidate all zircons from being able to be radiometrically dated. And that was the point that TRock was just trying to make, right?
No. Can I respond to all that?
Yeah, of course.
So, okay, so when Beamsy was describing this, essentially what he's saying is that the damage comes from the radioactive decay itself. So here's one of the big problems with that. What you're telling me, Beamsy, is that the damage happens so slow over such a vast period of time that people cannot possibly see it happen.
It was in the description of what you had brought up of the zircon crystals themselves, so you could have read it just there.
I understand I can read claims in the paper. What I'm pointing out is that if it truly did happen over a vast period of time, there's no way to vet that out because it's too long of a period of geological time for a human observation. And so, in other words, it's just an assumption.
So do you think under X-ray we can't tell the damage that sort of has caused catastrophic damage to the zircon integrity and a zircon that has been damaged, but it hasn't been, the outside hasn't been damaged, meaning that it will preserve its integrity? Do you think that that's impossible to tell?
No, I don't. And I think that's a fair exercise to go through where you expose a zircon to radiation and see what the damaging nature is, right? That's essentially what you're saying, right? I think that's a perfectly fair exercise to do. The problem is you're still assuming that the damage that is there came from the alleged millions or billions of years of radiation. And what I'm saying is, in the formation process, because you did not see them form, you did not see the radioactive decay, you did not see the damage occur in situ.
Because you've got that wrong, TRock. We're not talking about sort of assuming that, like, trying to measure the damage caused. We're basically saying, hey, if the zircon's got enough damage that it's going to be contaminated by outside sources, we don't use that for dating. We find one that's more pristine, that doesn't have the damage that you're looking at, that has breached the outside of the zircon and therefore can let contaminants in. We're not measuring by the damage. We're measuring by the integrity of the zircon.
Oh, we're looking at the zircon. Okay, this zircon is broken. We can't use this broken thing. Let's get one that's not broken. It doesn't matter how old it is or how new it is. We can create the same sort of damage that we see on radiation damaged zircons by putting them into a particle accelerator. But it's because we can recognize what a damaged zircon is. We just go, okay, that one is damaged. It will give a false reading. That one is not damaged. Now let's put this through a test.
Here, may I attempt an analogy? So, TRock, have you ever gone hunting? Ever put together magazines for a gun?
Sure.
Okay. Have you ever gone through bullets and found one or two that were obviously broken or just wouldn't fire?
Probably.
And you did not put those in the magazine, right?
I wouldn't if I knew they were damaged, right?
Okay. When we are analyzing zircons to determine their age, we are going through them like you would with a pile of bullets and figuring out which ones would not fire, which ones wouldn't work correctly, and we are choosing to not put those in the magazine because they wouldn't work.
Okay, so 2 points that I'm really trying to make out of that, though. Number one is that if a non-damaged zircon can form side by side simultaneously with a damaged one, neither one of them are going to serve as the age determinant.
As I explained,
Why?
they don't form damaged. They become damaged over time. We don't know how much time they've been damaged by. We don't make assumptions like that.
Okay, you said the opposite of what I said.
No, you're claiming that because there's one pristine zircon and one broken zircon, that they both must have formed at the same time. One was formed broken, one was formed pristine. Is that correct?
No, I said if the possibility is there that both conditions can form simultaneously, it would invalidate the method.
How?
TRock, zircons can have different amounts of, say, uranium in them, which would lead to them experiencing more radiation, which would lead to them breaking down easier.
I really want to hear the logic here.
Crystals.
I want to hear T-Rock's logic here about why he thinks that this would invalidate the method.
So in part, it goes back to the Z-pinch thing that you can do in a lab. You can form radioactive parent and daughter in proportions very similar to what's found in the Earth, and you do it in a very short period of time. So what that would demonstrate, if you found both conditions of damaged and undamaged simultaneously in the same rock, basically what that indicates is that you didn't need billions of years to accumulate the damage.
Now, the Z-pinch process, what sort of environment does it occur in?
I don't know. I'm assuming that there's a correlation between a lab environment and a like, for instance, lightning strikes, I believe, is the correlation they make. Lightning strikes on the Earth and what happens in fulgurites, in and around fulgurites.
No, lightning wouldn't produce enough heat. You're talking about superheating things to nearly 2,000 to 3,000 degrees Celsius. That doesn't happen naturally.
That would depend on the mineral content where the lightning strike happens.
We are talking about the aspect of the Z-pinch. This is why it cannot happen in what you are describing. Especially on the scale that you are trying to refer.
Yeah, that's a better point. Lightning could maybe do some of the stuff that a Z-pinch could do, maybe, but no, there's almost no correlation with the possible and rare and geologically very identifiable signatures of lightning compared to what you're normally going to get geologically speaking. Like, no,
I mean, also, I could be wrong, but I don't think that lightning strikes 200 feet down into a block of granite.
Not generally.
I could be wrong.
I wouldn't even contest that point, because part of the whole nature of the debate is, how did the Earth form?
You only brought up the whole Z-pinch thing to try to make some kind of analogy, didn't you? To like. I mean, you were trying to
absurd analogy.
No, so just to be clear, so my particular position on formation of the Earth. Now, I have to set aside the obvious supernatural presence for the sake of this conversation, because we don't have that type of information. But what I will say is that when you look at things like granites and some of the other rocks and minerals in the Earth, it looks more like a fusion process than a nuclear decay process. And nuclear fusion absorbs energy. So the idea here then is that when you look at granites that still have helium and radio halos and that sort of thing in it, it's apparent that they've cooled rapidly. They've cooled very rapidly, which is much more indicative of fusion than nuclear decay.
Not for granites. No, granites can take thousands of years to cool.
Are you saying that the elements in granite were formed by nuclear fusion?
So the model proposed in Young Earth Creation was put forth by Russell Humphreys. And basically his model says that the Earth started out a giant ball of water, and the hydrogen atoms were aligned a particular way with a magnetic field. And then they were suddenly de-aligned, and that induced the magnetic field. And I'm taking it a step further and saying that process probably induced fusion in the core due to the mass. And so that's
nuclear fusion in the Earth's core. You're talking about nuclear fusion in the core of the Earth.
At the time of creation only, yes.
Why?
No.
Why only then?
Well, because it's gonna, like I said, fusion absorbs energy, so the cooling effect is very fast.
It
does not. Fusion
Above
does
very
not.
much
The
does
sun,
not.
the sun is fusion. It
Well,
produces energy.
hold on. The point he's about to make is a valid one. Let him make the point.
The point is that from iron down, yes, it puts
Iron
heat out,
up.
but above iron, it's a cooling process.
Yeah. So that was his point. However, most of the Earth is not made out of the heavier stuff. And
Uranium.
also, everything you're describing would require incredible amounts of pressure that would not be met by the Earth at the beginning. It's complete madness, and it would cause the whole thing to detonate if it did happen.
I don't think that's something you can demonstrate empirically.
Have you ever heard of brown dwarfs? They're kind of stars, but they're stars that aren't quite big enough or massive enough to have fusion going
I think
on.
You can absolutely. Okay, so if you're saying that, wait, hold on. What do you mean that you can't demonstrate it empirically? So you have a certain accounting, you have a budget of materials that you need to create by this process. We know how much these processes give out because we can do most of these things in heavy ion accelerators and whatnot. And all that does is increase the likelihood of a particular process happening. It still has to overcome, the same potential barrier that it would if it was at the bottom and like all smushed together. So you're still able to learn a massive amount about how these things actually happen. And we can then add up the numbers and see that would incinerate everything.
Right. And I just want to point out that you're sort of, leveraging this idea of, oh, well, you've got, no evidence to show that didn't happen. You're basically postulating that the Earth was in water with zero evidence whatsoever. You're postulating a fusion event, which sort of contravenes the laws of physics. And then you're sort of telling us, oh, but you've got no empirical evidence to show that it didn't happen. It's ridiculous, TRock. This is ridiculous.
That's not what I did. That's not what I did, Mark.
That's exactly what you did. You just said that. You just said it. Like a lot of the things in this debate has been you saying things and then denying you ever said them.
No,
which is ridiculous.
No, you've changed the nature of the statements I did make. There is evidence that the Earth started out as water. It's written into the text of the Bible. Written text is evidence of something.
Please give us a source other than the Bible. No. Give us a source in the natural world, please.
There isn't one because in the natural
you have
world,
no evidence.
Yes, I do.
You have no evidence.
You have self.
How do you know God's not trolling you?
What evidence is for the sake of your own argument, and I'm saying, if you're intellectually honest, anything written down is evidence of something happening.
It's evidence someone wrote it down. It's not evidence beyond any of that.
Look, for the sake of my own sanity, I just want to understand if I'm tracking this conversation, right? Because this started when we asked you, TRock, to walk us through the logic of why broken zircons would invalidate other zircons that were formed concurrently. And from that question, you brought up Z-pinch and lightning strikes. But then you said, oh, but the fusion is really what's responsible for creating all these elements. And none of that answers what originally was asked to you.
Creates more.
And it's the ravings of a madman. It's also the ravings of a madman.
You almost connected the dots, Grayson. You almost did it. You want me to finish it?
Connect the dots for me then.
Okay. Again, this is my hypothesis. I understand that I'm not going to find a lot of support in the scientific literature, and I'm perfectly fine with that because the scientific literature basically excludes
all. Let's not go tangents. Just explain it. Let's not go tangents.
Fair enough. So what I'm saying is that if the Earth were all water per Humphrey's model and per text given in the Bible, that's where he got it from. He made a very valid prediction out of this. But if the Earth is a big ball of water, the hydrogen atoms are aligned a particular way so that they have a strong magnetic field, or they're aligned a particular way, and then they're de-aligned very suddenly it induces a magnetic field. If you couple that with a fusion event that follows from the mass and the induction of the magnetic field induces an electric current. The electric current at creation could potentially, again, this is my hypothesis, spike to the point where you have both simultaneous fusion, Z-pinch, and the formation simultaneously of zircons that are both damaged and undamaged side by side.
Do you have any physics to describe any of that?
Yes.
Math.
Yes.
No, you don't. You really don't, dude.
Yes.
Humphreys doesn't either.
Yes.
Can you link that paper? I want to read the Humphreys paper.
Yeah, I want to read that paper.
I should do a thing on him.
The aspect of what you're trying to
be
do,
like me and Beamsy reading Steve Austin's paper.
I mean, TRock, you're familiar with, like, well, I don't want to assume this, but the mass of the Earth cannot have enough mass to create the requisite conditions for nuclear fusion to occur, because you can't get that high temperature and pressure with that little mass.
Especially with water.
You just made a big,
in that area, rather.
You just made a big assumption.
Well,
you assumed
I
that the
have
original
to back it up.
No, listen. You assumed that the original water mass was equal to the current Earth mass.
Why wouldn't it be?
What?
I'm not the creator. I couldn't tell you what it takes in a supernatural sense.
So that's just appealing to miracles, basically.
Yeah.
I'm really sorry, but you're just saying, hey, there was enough water, there was enough mass, it was miracled out of there or something. I don't. How is this even possible?
I mean, that's fair. That's fair, Mark. It is appealing to miracles, but it's appealing specifically to the miracles that are described in the Bible. I'm not making this up whole cloth.
So wait,
the Bible doesn't say
Bible a
anything
valid
about nuclear
source?
fusion. That's adding a whole lot of stuff to what the Bible says.
No, that's a fair
That
statement. But the conclusion that I was going through, though, was that the Bible does tell you the initial conditions were primarily water. Humphreys, the thing that you guys are laughing about and saying you want to read this paper, I don't have it in front of me at the moment, but what Humphreys did with that was he said, okay, let's look at Uranus. It's got a mass. We'll assume that it was formed out of water, just like the Earth is described in the Bible. The
He
Bible
never talks about the planets he got wrong. Sorry, Humphreys never talks about the planets he got wrong. He made predictions for several planets that did not pan out.
I will take that as at face value and say, okay, that's fine. That's neither here nor there. The point is that what happened afterwards was he put his own physics equations together using very standard physics. He made a prediction about Uranus and a couple other planets, and he did this before a flyby past Uranus or Uranus, and so you've got NASA heading up this space mission where they're going to go and do some investigation in deep space in our solar system. And so NASA also made their own predictions on the field strength of the magnetism of Uranus. And so now you have Humphreys with his model side by side with NASA's model. Theirs was off by 6 orders of magnitude, and his was off by a factor of about 3, not 3 orders of magnitude, literally just 3. And so his was way, way, way closer than theirs. And it worked on more than one planet.
Cool, he guessed right. I remember Humphreys now that you mentioned the magnetic field thing. I did a video on him where he proposed that we can explain distant starlight in a young Earth creation model if God just tucks the Earth into a black hole for 14 billion years to pass and then takes it out and makes the black hole vanish so that the Earth can be only 6,000 years old in a 14 billion year old universe. This is the same dude. A stop clock is right twice a day. I don't see any reason to take anything this guy says seriously.
And the aspect of actually making the statement that the Earth was formed through the fusion of water, even with a massive deuterium, which is still water, but it's heavy water, you would still have residue effects that you would be able to measure. It's the same thing with the isolator reactor. Both fission and fusion leave byproducts. Those byproducts can be measured. there are no byproducts of any fusion ever happening on the planet of Earth.
Well, some fusion, but yeah, that's humans.
Yeah, you're talking about the reactor. That doesn't count. So, yeah.
I was thinking the hydrogen bomb tests, but, same thing.
Just logically, even if broken zircons were created simultaneously with unbroken zircons, that does not invalidate the dating of the pristine zircons. Just logically, it doesn't follow. Without all this stuff about Z pinches and Humphrey's madness, just the original point he was trying to make, still, after all of this, does not logically follow.
Yeah, I still pointed out that it doesn't matter when, how, or in what way those zircons were broken. They're broken. They're not usable because they can be contaminated. The pristine ones can't be contaminated. That's just the way of their lattice work. That's why we use broken zircons. It doesn't... How does it actually come into effect that we're making assumptions in this way? All we're looking at is one's broken, one's not. Don't use the broken ones.
So let me kind of point out too the issue, and so we're talking about a culmination of evidence here. So again, I'll stick to my original claim that does invalidate the method, but I'll support it by saying, to go along with that, when you look at the isochron method, which is what's usually associated with zircon dating, when you look at the isochron dating method, there's two things that stand out glaringly to me that tell me that that what I'm saying has to be true. And one of them is that there is a plethora of terms in the secular literature describing what's called pseudo isochrons, false isochrons, a mixing line. There's about 11 different terms that I've counted in the standard literature that describe this. And what that means is you think you have a legitimate date from this isochron because it plots correctly, but it doesn't. It's a discordant date that does not match the geological context. And so that's one of them. The other one is that, and that's driven, the whole notion behind that has to do with fractionation in the Earth's core, which there, in my estimation, I haven't seen where there's been enough scientific study to determine the extent of fractionation of heavy elements. But the other thing is that in a perfect isochron, if an isochron is truly perfect, what that means is the parent-daughter ratio is exactly the same in every single sample, and the daughter to the stable daughter ratio is exactly the same in every single sample you take. If that were true, the isochron plot would literally be a single dot and not a line at all. And so you can't have a perfect isochron, but you can have false isochrons, and neither one of them give a legitimate date. And it's completely assuming that you only used non-damaged, non-contaminated zircons.
Do you know why they use bracket dating?
Bracket dating?
You've got an upper and lower of those isochron datings. That's
Sure.
the bracket.
Sure.
Do you understand what that bracket is?
The min and max ages that the method is supposed to be valid for, I believe.
Do you know why they represent a min and a maximum in those plots?
Yeah.
Okay. Can you explain to us why there is representative of a min and a max before we even do any testing?
Well, it's because there is some circular reasoning built into it, and you only, and this is one of my other really big points, you have to have the geological context first. In other words, you have to know approximately how old you think the sample is before you can even pick the method. The professors, yes, the professors from Harvard and Berkeley and all those guys, you can go watch YouTube videos where these professors literally are explaining this, that you have to select the method based on
You're
a
explaining this to a
geological-
geologist, TRock. Like Beamsy has
Yes,
worked
and you're
with
sitting
work
there
on it.
Yeah,
saying
keep in mind,
saying that you
Beamsy
have to
has
watch
done this for
YouTube
years.
videos. I'm assuming they're creationist YouTube videos. Is
No.
what I'm assuming.
No, well, if you heard what I said, I literally got this directly from, it was either Berkeley or a Harvard site where the guy was not a creationist at all. He was endorsing
Yeah,
the
I don't
methods,
believe you.
and he was explaining how to.
So how confident are you, TRock, that you understood what he was conveying? How confident are you that you have a handle on what they were saying?
He might be busy with something happening, so just give him some time.
Maybe I didn't mute him or anything. He's definitely free to talk.
Sorry, I muted myself.
No worries, no worries.
Sorry, Grayson. What I was saying is I'm very confident. It was a university presentation. It was not a creationist source. It was very straightforward. The guy pretty much just came right out and said, this method is good for this date range. This method is good for this date range. This method is good for this date range. And the only way you can know that is to understand the geological context first.
No. You can understand the fundamental physics first to understand decay rates, to understand which dating methods would be valid for what date range.
You want me to respond to that?
Sure.
Yeah, I don't think you understood what they were saying at all, TRock. I think they're saying the first thing you should do is probably try to figure out what the date range would be so you can sort of get a start on it. But that doesn't mean you need to know it. It might be prudent to, make a hypothesis first, but that doesn't mean that you're circular reasoning.
And this goes back to what Doc was saying in the debate, where you would not use a yardstick to measure picometers. You need to use the proper measuring tool in the proper intended use. You will not use something that's mismatched for what you're trying to measure.
Okay, fair enough. But maybe you can walk me through when you're a field geologist and you walk up on a random formation that has no historical or archaeological context behind it. How do you know which method to use?
We don't, because in most features, we don't radiometrically date them.
How do you date them?
Mostly through associative stratigraphy. It really depends on what you're talking about. If you have found a granite sample, we can date that. If you found a flood basalt flow, we can date that. Or an ashfall level, we can date those. But if you want me to walk up to a piece of sandstone and go, how old is this? I have no idea, and we cannot date that. We can get a relative date.
I didn't say sandstone, though. That's not what I said. I know
you just said a piece of strata.
Okay,
you didn't specify.
I didn't specify, but that's part of the point. But the obvious implication is that one of the available methods could apply to the sample you pull.
No, we would actually have to use multiple methods to actually find the exact date of an igneous sample. We don't just run it through one method. We don't go, okay, we found this at this level, we're going to run it through here. Because it could be an incursion, it could be a later eruption, it could be a upwelling, it could be an uplifting, it could be a cleavage.
So what do you do, Beamsy? What do you do?
If we're actually taking a sample of an igneous rock, we would actually drill into it to get into the central areas. We would take multiple samples from multiple sections. A good indication would be one for every 5 to 10 square meters of what you have for the sample. You would then send the sample off to be radiometrically dated through an AMS system. These will then actually be testing for most of the different isochrons. All the isochrons will have a minimum age in which they can actually show to, and they also will have a bracketed age of where it would fit into. If the samples give a obscure reading, that is usually because it's too young. But as we actually look at the data, we would actually get something like a Matriskadol. Some of the data will be having a very wide bracket because they have a very long half-life. And as we progress it down, the lower the half-life, the more accurate it becomes. But all of those readings will all fall within one area of it. They'll actually fit nicely within it, like a matrix Iscadol would do. The one with the shortest half-life would fit into the next one, into the next one, and the next one. And if it actually all fits together, that means we've done our sampling correct and our age dating is correct. This takes a lot of work.
Well, generally, how many isotopes would they look at, Beamsy? Or pairs, I
How
guess,
many do you
of parent-daughter elements kind of thing. How many different ones?
How many can you detect? That's probably a good place to start.
Sure.
On a quick aspect, most can actually detect 8 in one run, but if you really want to be pedantic, you could start getting upwards of 20.
So there you go, 20 different parent-daughter isotope tests. So they don't start with the one they think is correct, TRock. This is a misunderstanding.
Literally, he described the process he described from too young all the way through upwelling and a variety of other geophysical mechanisms. He literally described what I called geological context. He literally described comparing those samplings to geological context.
But we don't use those.
I don't think you heard him.
Yeah,
we don't actually. Yeah, we don't use those contexts to actually give the date, because they will throw off the date if we try and go, okay, this is found here, so we think it's between Cambrian and Devonian. Could be, but we don't know because we don't actually have any data from where it occurred.
So what is the term discordant?
Do you ever send off like control samples where you don't tell them where it's from and only ask them to do the radiometrics?
None of the samples I sent off, we actually told them where they came from. We just wanted the isochronic data from it.
And how many samples did you send off?
Approximately 3,000.
3,000 for one rock unit?
For one bed of granite that we were actually drilling into. We made 273 boreholes into it, and we took approximately 3,000 zircon crystals out of the samples.
How big of an area in terms of two-dimensional land surface?
It's about 10 square kilometers. It was about 800 meters deep, so we don't actually know how in depth it is because we could only get the ground penetrating radar down to about 900 meters, and it goes much deeper than that.
So wait, Beamsy, let me get this straight. You sent out all these samples, and the first question that they asked you was not, what layer did these come from?
No, we asked for a complete isotronic sampling of them, and we would like the data back, please. Yes, very much. And here you go. That's pretty much how it went.
Incredible. TRock, any response from his firsthand experience here? That is
no. I personally, I have no problem with what he's described. It seems very reasonable to me. I've heard this. I know you have too, Grayson. That you'll hear some of the professional creationist apologists say that that they ask for the supposed age. How do you think this sample is, or where did you get it from, so that they can perhaps make a determination. I've heard the professional creationist apologists make that argument. I'm not in a position to validate it one way or the other, but what Beamsy described to me is perfectly reasonable. I would assume, though, that what Beamsy has not said is that it's not unheard of for them to do such a thing.
Wait, so you're gonna rest your argument on it's
no,
not unheard of?
No. What I'm saying is, it's neither here nor there to me. What's more important to me is if you were to pull samples from Mount St. Helens or the volcano in Iceland or something like that, you can get isochron plots and data and stuff all day long, and you're going to get false ages, and you know you will.
But wait. You understood,
Beamsy,
and
you want to go into the Steve Austin paper?
Whenever I went through that, you can't use a tool incorrectly. Like if you try to measure picometers with a yardstick, that is an incorrect use of the tool. So you agreed with that makes sense, that you cannot incorrectly apply a tool that's meant to be used in certain contexts. And now you're trying to do just that by trying to apply isochron dating incorrectly. You are trying to measure picometers with a yardstick.
Grayson, my educational background happens to be in dimensional metrology. I understand very well what the implications are and what you said. I do not have a problem understanding that. What I'm saying is, in a proper scientific method, you have a control group. In radiometric dating, your control group must start necessarily with things that you can validate the exact age on.
Mount Vesuvius, Pompeii. We've done that.
Yes. Fair.
Lake Sweigets, which you never really addressed other than a vague assertion to laminar flow.
No, that's not a direct confirmation of the age. You were talking about something in the order of 40, 50, upwards of 100,000 layers that are presumed ages. That's not the same as Vesuvius.
They're not presumed ages. We can count to 50,000. We can count to 100,000.
What we're doing first, before you get to that point and claim that's the age, we're establishing a control group first. And
why do the VARs and the radiometric dating line up?
Say again?
Why do the VARs and the radiometric dating line up like that?
Which radiometric dating? Which radiometric dating?
The carbon dating that almost followed the curve exactly.
So I tried to point this out to you, and I'll explain that, but it has to do with how you calibrate beyond observable history or observed written history. And
TRock, those were uncalibrated readings.
There's no such thing as
uncalibrated numbers they got.
There's no such thing as uncalibrated carbon. They literally describe the difference between carbon years.
They literally just determined the proportion of carbon-14 to nitrogen-14. That's all they did in that graph.
So let me back up a minute on calibration and control groups. Mount Vesuvius. You have a solid historical background for it. So you can take carbon-14 samples, and you can get a carbon years. You can make an adjustment, a calibration, and make it conform to the historical years that you know are true. So the point there then is that when it comes to a proper understanding of a control group for the deeper time methods, such as potassium argon or uranium lead, whatever the case may be, you would start with a very large sample set of volcanoes and other igneous formations that you know exactly when they happened by historical context. Once you put that together, then you have the basis to compare that to something you have no historical context for. That's how proper control groups are created in a good scientific method. If anybody knows of such a study that does that in the open literature, I would love to hear about it and get access to a paper on it. I personally just don't know whether such a thing exists or not, but I don't think it does.
The dating method as assigned within the Yellowstone upwelling and with the specimen ridge using dendrochronology to associate.
Sure. Dendrochronology, it suffers the same problem though. We do know that there are rings. We do know that tree rings can form more than one per year.
But there's you can tell.
Tree rings are so unpredictable.
Whoa! Somebody just really roboted.
Yeah,
I think Ember just ascended.
Yeah,
it sounded cool. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, it was pretty baller. But yeah, no, like you're sort of, but the problem is that you're sort of pointing to very rare occurrences and saying, hey, the tree rings can be unreliable. Let's not trust them. But they match up with the dating. They match up with the ice core samples. They match, all of this matches, and you're sort of saying, well, no, because there's these fringe cases, we can't trust any of it. It's this absolutism in your thinking that you've got to have absolute certainty. And if there's anything wrong at all, throw all of it out the window is just, it's ridiculous. While at the same time, and I want to point this out again, your evidence for your own side is, well, I got a book.
which also has errors. In fact, this isn't terribly different from us going through the Bible and pointing out a couple of contradictions here and there and saying, therefore, the whole thing is untrustworthy.
Is anyone going to come join me and go to London so we can visit platform 9 3/4? Because that's written down.
Ooh, that sounds fun.
Only if we invite Lisa the Rainbow Giraffe.
Yeah, the issue with making the statement that sometimes dendrochronology has two multiple growth rings in a year. Yes, and we can see that because of the thickness of the rings. The growth rates are fairly consistent within most of what we're studying. When they go for a dendrochronology analysis, they have around 16 to 17,000 years of overlapping history using tree rings of different species of trees. So we know how much they grow in a year. The only way that you could actually affect that multiple tree rings in a year, you would also have to affect their growth rate. You would also have to affect the amount of nutrients they actually partake. They would also have to get the water, the sunlight. They would have to get much more of an input that you just cannot physically do to allow them to grow, have 1 year's worth of tree rings being compressed into a month. That's just not physically possible.
And
Wait a
even
sec,
if they
Beamsy,
were
quick
off
question.
by a year or two.
What is the current count for the total passage of time with the Specimen Ridge?
Our Specimen Ridge is around 20,000 years.
Okay, so divide that by half. Let's say we have 2 growth rings every year. I don't think 10 equals 6,000.
But there's also the aspect that you've got to take in the gaps with them. With the problem with Specimen Ridge, if you want to just use Specimen Ridge, you also have to use other parts where we've got other petrified forests and other petrified trees. But with the Specimen Ridge, we've got about 20,000 years of history there, but then you've also got to take into account that the ashfall had to break down into soil for the new trees to grow on top of it. So you're looking at probably 50, 60,000 years worth of history just there.
But plus, these different methods are cross-corroborating. Like the radiometric dating is cross-corroborated by dendrochronology, and they match each other. So those are
Pompeii
and the Varves.
Yeah, Pompeii is confirmed by Varves, dendrochronology, radiocarbon dating, radiometric dating, historical dating, and most of them come within a year or two of the correct date.
Okay, let me respond real quick, and I'm going to have to duck out of here. I apologize. I've got work in the morning.
Yeah, no worries.
I'm going to make a couple quick comments, and I'm just going to have to duck out. But first of all, let me say I think I've been extremely objective in basically saying, yes, I understand my 6,000 year timeline comes directly from the Bible, but I try and separate that for the sake of doing good, consistent physics. And so I've said this several times. There are no objective dating methods. So when you go analyzing what you think of as the passage of time, I believe I've been very objective and said, okay, there are limitations with every single method. But on this tree ring thing, one of the things that you guys have not described properly is that, so if you have 50,000 years worth of tree ring dating, you're not talking about a single tree. You're talking about multiple trees. And if you go read some of the literature, and I will grant that I've only, an evolutionist shared a paper with me, and so I went through to read it to see what they were doing with dendrochronology as regards carbon-14. And so what they're doing is they're taking specimen number 1, counting the rings, determining an age, and then they're picking specimen 2 and they're adding them together, but they're using carbon-14 to collaborate the distance between the 2 specimens. So it's not like you walk up to a site and take a drill core sample and get 50,000 rings from a single tree. It's not like that at all. And part of this exercise is to help calibrate one or the other. And so when they're literally calibrated to each other and the carbon-14 has its own calibration curve that falls outside necessarily, because you have to extrapolate beyond what I was describing earlier as at max 7,000 years worth of written textual history. You're having to extrapolate carbon-14 to get into the realm of you might say useful dendrochronology when it comes to prehistory in the secular sense. So all that means to me is you're calibrating one rubber band against another and then saying they all agree. So let me highlight that real quick with this. So you talked about VARVs too. In VARVs, if you count 100,000 couplets, then you think you have 100,000 years worth of passage of time. But what if you pull a sample out of there that is biomaterial like plant debris or something? You're gonna get carbon-14 in it. But 100,000 years says you can't have measurable carbon-14 in it. So now you got to pick.
100,000 samples don't have carbon-14 in them.
I didn't say that. VARVs can be contaminated with external objects just like anything else. And so it is entirely conceivable and possible and reasonable, just like in the discussion about volcanoes. You can have volcanoes that have buried, burnt, charred wood in them. And now you have the opportunity to do carbon 14 dating and something like potassium argon on the same basic event. But which one do you believe actually happened?
Well, just for a start, like I said, that objective is stance independent. So you're not sort of talking like you've been objective. No, your position is stance independent. Just because you say, hey, my position, I've acknowledged it's coming from the Bible, you're acknowledging the subjectivity of your stance, right? It's stance dependent. So you're still using that word wrong. Like, I'm not saying that you couldn't be factual, or you couldn't be empirical, or you couldn't be any of these things, but you're not using the word objective right there, because it is stance dependent what you're saying. And it doesn't address why all of these dating measures correlate with each other. They line up with each other, including ice core samples, including radiometric dating, VARVs, dendrochronology, just every single field is lining up. And you sort of want to explain it away by, oh, well, you're trying to put them together and you can't be certain because it's outside the range of what this can measure and then into what another range is. And it's like, yeah, but they still all correlate.
TRock, if I'm hearing you correctly, you're saying that the reason that they correlate is because each one is calibrated by the others, but that is not what is going on here. Dendrochronology, like, are corroborated, like they're compared and calibrated to each other, to other it's not just that we have two samples, right? We have thousands of samples that all overlap, and that's what's being compared to each other. We're not calibrating these things based on carbon-14 dating. We can check if the carbon-14 dates match with the dendrochronology dates, such as an example would be the Uluburun shipwreck. And look, they do. They both get 14th century BC, two independent methods.
And plus tree rings, tree rings aside, ice core samples even correlate with the wobble of the Earth's tilt. It corroborates what physics says the temperature should be along these samples year by year. Like, they actually show, I think is it the precession of the Earth as it goes around the sun. Like, so all of these things line up. So, it's not only that, but that also corroborates with what the growth that we see in the trees. All of these things all match up. And you're sort of saying, well, they're all relying on one another. No, we're just relying on physics with things like ice core samples. We don't say, hey, multiple ice core samples can form over 1 year. No, that's not what happens. It's like thawing and melting, and freezing, sorry.
Listen, guys, I got to go. I appreciate everybody's been relatively hospitable, and it's been a good conversation for my part.
Yeah,
so,
thanks for coming too.
I appreciate the chance to speak with you all. Thank you, Mark, for hosting. I do got to go, so I'm going to let you guys have the word and duck out. Thanks.
No problem. Take care, TRock. Have a good night, mate.
Yeah. Would you like me to explain how dendrochronology works? Because I think Pat's having an aneurysm as well.
Yeah, Pat is aiming Amarià. That's all right. That's Pat's normal state of mind, quite frankly. So that's fine. I love you, Pat. I just throwing shade at Pat for no reason. What the hell is wrong with me? All right, go for it, Beansy.
With dendrochronologists, they're people like Pat, who's an archaeologist. They've taken wood samples, large chunks of wood of a particular species. We can identify if something's a birch, a pine, or a spruce, and we actually have stored that. So, and with those, we can overlay samples that have similar growth rings. They would have been felled in a similar area. That's why we can actually go, okay, these all line up. We get a lot of crossover with a lot of these samples. That's why we have a consistent approximately 16,000 years worth of history of pines. And it's a consistent history. It's not consistent on carbon-14. It's not dependent on anything else other than the fact being each of these lines, we can tell that that's 1 year of growth rings. That's 1 year of growth rings. Okay, that's 5 growth rings, but that happened in a year. We can see this. We can also see that the changes in the atmosphere. We can see the changes in the climate. That's what dendrochronology can do, and it's standalone. It gives a dating method that is not dependent on anything else.
Trees are cool.
Trees are cool.
Look at the trees. Yes, let's look at the trees.
I'm gonna smite you.
No, seriously. Yes, let's look at the trees. What do the trees tell us? They tell us all this interesting stuff.
I
what
think
TRock was suggesting. Yeah, what
in
was
the
what
movie
TRock
Oppenheimer? I think Kurt Gödel was saying trees are the most inspiring forms.
What TRock was saying, he tried to say that we date these with carbon-14 where we have gaps. No, we have 16,000 years of history in just the samples. We don't need to date them to see gaps. There are no gaps in that consistent history. And that's why we can use that to calibrate other things that we're trying to date with. And that's why it makes a great yardstick.
Don't bristlecones alone go back like 9,000 years?
That's a living one.
Well, yeah. I was reading they lined up living ones with some dead ones near it or something that they don't decay in that environment.
It goes back further than 9,000 years. It's
okay.
Around 11,000 to 12,000 years, those ones.
Okay.
Yeah, well, clonal trees last a lot longer. They are older than the just the single trees kind of thing. But yeah, I mean, it's not.
But their growth rings are very consistent, and we can actually see which one's a clone of what.
Yes. Yep.
Aren't there some birch groves that altogether go for over 10,000 years?
Not birch, the other one.
Aspen?
Aspen, yeah. Yeah, because birch is just the trunk and dies off quickly, but aspen's large root system, many trunks.
Like Pando in Utah.
Getting that one like 50,000 years old or something.
Well, wait, can't birch trees also propagate by root systems?
They can do the, what's the name for it? The little sproutling thing where they throw up a second trunk kind of deal, but they do die of old age. Like they're first growth trees. There's one of the groups that shows up when a farmer stops plowing his field to start to reforest the area. They live 90 years ish, give or take. But yeah, they look so similar to aspens which are very, very long lived under, the right circumstances, like not being eaten or killed.
Well, I really wonder, and here's what I wonder: is any of these conclusions something you would come to if you didn't believe in the Bible as a source? It seems like the linchpin is just the Bible has to be true, and that maybe that's just sort of the way it seems to me. But that seems to be what I come from all the time. Like it just.
Has anyone here ever met any young Earth atheists?
I've met one or two, but I was gonna say, like, I know a lot of pagans just because of like my history and friend group, and not many of the pagans I know believe in a young Earth. Most of them are okay with science that I've met.
Okay.
I'm sure there are exceptions, like Bubbles. Bubbles, I know is an exception.
I did meet a Hindu person once who argued that the radiometric dating of asteroids showing that the solar system is 4.6-ish billion years old proves the Hindu scriptures. But again, you're starting with the conclusion of the scripture and looking for evidence to back it up.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and some
That has
say
to do
like
some wild interpretation to the numbers in there, like sort of, doing numerology on the numbers in the scripture, I'm sure.
and I've heard a few say like Neanderthals existing proves a specific legend about one of the gods.
Bigfoot.
Oh, really?
All hail Bigfoot.
Yeah.
It's Bigfootia, the god of astute men. I don't know. I'm making this up as I go along. You wanted me to show this. This is what you wanted me to show?
Yeah, the picture there. I was just looking at the thumbnail you made for this after show.
Oh,
In
look,
case
I'm
anyone's
sorry.
curious,
It was so last minute. It was like,
oh, it's fine. It's fine. But in case anyone's curious, this is the picture that my profile picture is loosely based on. So if anyone ever wants to do fan art, I mean, I'd welcome it. I'd show it off.
Ooh, you should
By
put
Jack
a fan
Wood.
art
I
section
thought this
in
was
your-
beautiful.
That better?
Yeah,
A little bit, yeah.
nice and big. But yeah, if you ever get around to fleshing out your Discord server, Doc, you should put a fan art section in.
What she said. Nice. All right. Yeah, no, send all fan art into Dok Deino if you've got a dinosaur. I'm going to draw a brontosaurus with crayons and send it in personally. You better show it too. You better show it too.
I mean, hey, send fan art of all of us. I'd love to see Ember and Mark raging at someone on one of their debate reviews. just have you two be like a wrestler announcers.
I want to see some fan
I'm
art.
coming for Flazoid.
Whoa.
That was scary.
I want to see some fan art of a giant Earth-sized water ball undergoing nuclear fusion to create the Earth.
Sorry, Mark, you got to show this. I found the perfect image for someone to. Oh, I should share it. I found the perfect image for someone to parody with the two of you. And, who would be the?
Oh no!
Oh, that.
Come on, show it. It's great.
Only because it's your show.
Just someone please
What am
draw
I
a
looking
parody
at
of
right
this
now?
sketch.
I'm
Yeah,
sure
that's
it's
when I
too
start
appropriate.
cackling. That means I'm exhausted.
Yeah, okay.
Someone draw a
Extreme close
parody
up.
of this with
Yeah, that would be actually pretty good for fan art.
Yeah, I was thinking Mark in the middle, Ember on the right, and then who on the left?
Gotta be Grayson, right? Grayson on the
Ooh,
left.
could be.
It's gotta be, of course.
Okay.
Oh boy.
Oh, we have someone in chat. Jason Jacoby says they love to draw. They might do it.
Oh no. See what you've
But
done.
there's the link in
This
the
is why
chat.
we can't have nice things.
Absolutely.
Because Doc gets tired and shares random memes.
Sure does. Sure does. I don't know. I don't know. Like TRock, I feel like all of this is just sort of trying to make reasons why their religion must work kind of thing, right? I don't know. I just
Yeah,
Mark,
it's the cherry picking thing.
TRock is
Yeah.
a dimensional metrologist. All right, he's certified. You heard it himself.
Oh, I don't even know what that is, and it's not a real thing anyway. Like, seriously, what is that?
It's it just has to do with measurement. I mean, it's just measuring stuff, like with dimensions. I mean, metrology is like the study of measurement, right? And dimensional just means that it has dimension to it. So he's a dimensional metrologist. He's a pro.
And I mean, like, in
Yeah,
the
well, he
debate,
might be
like,
measuring
he was in
something.
his work office, and I saw like one of those uniforms that construction workers wear. If he does anything in construction, he should know, like, models are real freaking important. But he just blew it right off. Just boop.
I thought he was a landscaper or something like that at the moment. You know, that's what he was doing
Well,
at the moment. Which
why
is not
is
to
it-
say anything bad about him. It's just, yeah, that's what I thought
Why
he was
is
doing.
it that every flat earther that I seem to talk to, if they have a job, it's almost always a contractor?
Is TRock a flat earther?
No,
He's
I don't think
pretty
so.
close to it. I mean, he could be pushed there real
Well,
easily.
no, let's be fair. I don't think he is, but there's a lot of overlap between the arguments they make. So sometimes it's very hard to tell because they use a lot of the same arguments, you know, like, yeah.
Yeah, geocentrism, flat Earth, young Earth creation, it all kind of blends together.
The Venn diagram is a circle.
There's a lot of overlap, we'll just say. So far, every flat earther I've met is also a young Earth creationist. I'm sure there are exceptions, but just the ones I've talked to, it's
specifically a Christian one. Yeah, I don't know if I've ever met a non-Christian flat earther.
I've seen a couple, but yeah, it's generally founded on young Earth creationism with extra steps rather than the other way around.
Actually, I say that I've seen Muslim flat earthers. I've never seen a non-theistic flat earther. I guess amendment.
Good point. Good point.
I think, isn't Jaron? Doesn't he say he's not Christian? I don't know.
Jaronism?
Yeah.
Oh, look, I'm sorry, Wesley. I can't. I can't. I'm really sorry. Not to mention your devices aren't connected, so I literally can't.
Oh.
No, we're not doing that.
Yeah. Jason says in the chat, if you showed TRock empirical evidence the world was a sphere, he'd become a flat earther. That's kind of how it felt.
Not wrong. I literally watched a debate the other day of a flat earther who was arguing that the Pythagorean theorem is not correct. Like a squared plus b squared does not equal c squared.
What?
I saw a guy like that arguing against Planet Peterson. He was saying that because the interior angles of the triangle are 180 degrees, but you really need to measure the exterior angles of the triangle to get its real dimensions, and somehow that confirms flat Earth. And I just it broke my brain.
Aren't the exterior? No,
Yes.
what?
Yeah. You can use the exterior angles to also get 180 degrees for the interior angles. They're complementary, but yeah. This was not the same video. This guy was literally like, I mean, it was painful. It was on MC Tune, and he was literally going through step by step the Pythagorean theorem, and he'd get all the way to the end, and the guy would say, "No, you need to square it instead of square rooting it. So it's not a 3, 4, 5. It's a 3, 4, 6, 25." Because he says you need to square 25 instead of square root.
That's
what?
Yeah, watch the video.
Simple,
it's insane. I literally
that's simple math of equalizing the two sides.
Yeah, no, he's not getting basic algebra, like 8th grade, like 6th grade algebra. I don't know.
So in order to get a squared and b squared, you've got to square the other side.
Yeah, well, he's saying if you follow the formula is like a recipe. And first you have to do a squared and then b squared. You add them together and then you have to
Yeah.
square it because it's c
Oh.
squared. It was like the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Like, I posted a meme about how arguing with creationists is like arguing with people that like disagree with Pythagorean theorem, and I thought it was a joke. I really didn't think anyone would possibly argue against it. And then not even a week later, I see someone actually attempt to say
Wow.
they've debunked Pythagoras.
Yeah, sorry,
Hi, Pat. How you
Mark.
doing?
I just posted a link to what is
Good.
going on in my brain right now.
Okay.
I'm trying to comprehend the stupid. It not loading.
I mean, we can validate that by just measuring it.
I know the guy literally did. He made a three, like on grid paper. He made a 3, 4, 5 triangle. He measured it. The guy agreed it was 3, 4, 5. Then they went through the formula, and he said, "No, because the formula is wrong. Because when you follow the formula, it is 3, 4, 6, 25." It's like, oh my god.
Oh, wow. But I love TRock because he kind of says, "Oh, I don't deviate from any standard physics," and then like he'll claim like the Earth was created before the universe, or that the Earth was water and then went through fusion. You know, like just this.
Yeah, the
like,
giant water Earth started undergoing nuclear fusion, and then
Yes.
lightning strikes Z-pinched the rest of the elements.
Like I'm glad I can actually say hate that I experience this myself now, but just insisting that you are wrong and you need to do your research while getting every single bit of every single thing you say wrong. Just
He just
it takes a lot of effort.
All of it's drawn from AIG and CMI. All of it. Like you'll find exactly what he says on those two websites, AIG and CMI.
Oh yeah, he wasn't happy when I called Snelling a liar. That was fun.
I just don't think people realize how interdisciplinary like some fields are, like mine. Like I always tell Beamsy, I know just enough geology to be dangerous, right? Like I get drunk around geologists, I embarrass myself all the time, right? But like, you're digging on a 4th century BC site and you're coming down on what you think to be an ancient house in what is today modern Bulgaria. You find a couple coins. You grab the guy who does numismatics, and he goes, "Well, these coins are from this range to this range. We can say 325 to 350, right, for the minting." And then you have some organics that come out, maybe some carbonized wood, and some actual wood that's been preserved from the period. You send off the good pieces of wood, the stuff that's not carbonized or burnt. You send that off to the dendrochronologist, and they go, "Hey, yeah, you got somewhere around 325 to 340, right? So you're getting a little narrow range." And then the radiometric people come back, and go, "We're pretty comfortable saying 300 to 330." And then you send off some ceramic samples you have to the geologists, right? Like people like Beamsy, and they grind it up, little pieces of ceramics that we get, and they go, "Okay, this is where we're at for you guys." It's and where the ceramics actually come from in the world, right? Or in the Mediterranean in my case. Mm-hmm. And they all kind of are confirmatory. We never say we have an absolute date, right? Typically we don't, right? But we have some pretty narrow ranges. Like, and you never know, like the people receiving the wood, the actual for the dendro studies, they don't know where you got it from. You may say, we have this species of wood. You might be able to give them as a front loader. And then half the time they correct you anyway, saying, "Well, actually you have this subspecies of wood," right? Because you're just making we're not biologists, right? We're not dendrochronologists. It's really funny how people think, well, you're just telling them what to give you as results. It's like, no, really, we don't fucking know. We just send it off to people that are specialists. The only thing we may have at that time is is actually numismatics, right? The coins. That's something we can do in the field immediately, right? Or we can do some typological studies on.
Sorry, you just put it in a box with a return address saying, "Hey, I found this thing. do all the things.
Right, that's really it. Like when we're doing preliminaries, like we get like ceramics out of the ground, we do typological studies. We're like, well, we know that this vase was made or this ceramic good was made around this time in this region, but that's, that could be 100-year span, right, of time, maybe sometimes 200, because this was a very conservative style of manufacturing certain types of pottery, right? It's just amazing how people think there's this vast conspiracy, and it literally is like you stuff stuff in a box with a return label. Please, here's our $400 or $600 or $1,200, however much the lab is going to charge you, or I should say euros, right, to do your analysis, and you bracket that against your funding, right? That's another reason too. I've been asked, like, well, how come you guys didn't do all these tests on all this stuff? I'm like, because we didn't have the money to do it. Like, we don't have tens of thousands of dollars to. Right, like, to do radiometric dating on every piece of organic material that comes out of the ground. That's why I only tested a small sample group of certain items and certain deposits. Right, it's just amazing, and they're going. People want to argue with you, but it's like, honestly, we could have probably stopped at typology and numismatics, but we want to have additional confirmatory pieces of evidence. Which again is the dendro studies and the and other studies if they're warranted, particularly radiometric. But radiometric dating is expensive. And dendrochronology is not super cheap, but it's much more affordable.
And also, though, just hearing you talk about, we might have like 100 years of variance here, just laughs in geology.
It is. Well, but in my field, it's not, though. We try to get down into, we like to have decades if we can. Right. And still we rely on radiometric dating and other things to make sure we pigeonhole that as close as we can.
I just find it funny because, like, you're worried about hundreds of years. With us, we're lucky to get it down to the right million in some cases. Well, millions in some cases.
Well, in most cases, we can get it down to about 10,000.
Depending on your method and the quality of sample. Well, equipment, I guess.
Hey, Pat, maybe you can explain the aspect of what a geomagnetist does, because they don't assign magnets to things, like TRock says.
No, I mean, it really has to do with. So, for archaeology, we use geomagnetism to determine basically the alignment of ceramic goods. For the most part, that's really where I get quite a bit of study on it, as far as when ceramic materials, terracottas, clays, basically, are fired, the ions, the iron is fused in a certain direction based upon its geolocation. You can actually then mark that in a temporal way, not only just to figure out where stuff in relative position was fired or where these clays were cast, but you can also do as far as analysis over time. It's again, this is the kind of thing that people who are in the field understand, but I'm not a specialist in it. I just know how the evidence is going to be interpreted by other people, because I'm an in-field guy. I'm the guy, I'm a field archaeologist. I'm not a theoretical archaeologist, or there are experimental archaeologists as well. Like we have subdisciplines even in my field, kind of like the geologists do.
Yep.
In the same way, I'm a stratigraphist, and Doc is going for paleontology, and we've got volcanologists and seismologists.
Yep. Like, you figure out how the rock was deposited, and I say, oh, look, there's this thing here. That means this environment, and blah, 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 blah.
Well, that was the weird part, because TRock was sort of saying, how does a field geologist tell how old it is, kind of thing? And it's like, why would it be the field geologist? I mean, they might make some kind of assessment to how old they think it is, but in regards to radiometric dating, it isn't that the field geologist is going to be doing that, right?
Yeah, in the field, the best you can usually do is relative dating.
Let me just
this is above this
my...
one and incorporates parts of this one.
Yeah, let me just bust out my C14 portable dating device over here.
I mean,
what, they don't make
maybe
those?
You've worked with these. Aren't there like handheld isotope analyzers? I can't talk. I'm tired.
The smallest you can really get them is about the size of a laptop, and they're not very accurate. And the precision you need with those sort of things are too fiddly in the field.
I remember one of my classes, my professor talking about maybe it's in development, but yeah, there was just a handheld size scanner for various isotopes.
Was it
Might
on
only be
something called
specific
Star
ones.
Trek? Was it Star Trek?
It looked like it.
Ooh.
It might be something new or it might be something coming out, but it's nothing that I've encountered.
Yeah, she was a mineralogist, so it might be like in more of an inside thing.
Oh, anything that makes your job easier, I guess, is good.
I mean, it's exciting for sure.
Yeah, sure.
I just can't understand why he says that they are all rubber bands because they require each other to actually give the dates. No, they work by themselves. That's why we can compare them against each other.
Yeah, if they weren't robust, then nobody would trust them. Because it's so weird to me that the people who are the least skeptical about one specific thing are over the top skeptical about everything else. Thinking that, I guess, the entire field of science must have no skeptics in it somehow.
Mm-hmm. And they act like we're on a personal mission to disprove the existence of a god. And just, no, we do not care. We just follow where the evidence leads.
I still would like to know.
People.
Yeah, I'm still trying to come to terms with why a broken zircon forming next to an unbroken zircon would throw off results.
I don't know. I couldn't understand that either.
Because
I don't think there is any logic to it.
Well, you see, guys, it all goes back to a giant Earth-sized ball of water undergoing nuclear fusion. If you can't understand that, I just can't help you. You just can't see logic.
Little did they know it was all a big forgery.
But the aspect of what it is, the broken zircon would still be contaminated over time. We don't know when it will be contaminated. We don't know when it was broken. We can't tell that. That's nothing that we can tell. All we can tell, it's broken. And the unbroken zircon is not broken, so it wouldn't have any contamination.
Yeah, I almost wanted to just give him all that. Like, TRock, we'll give you the giant earth ball, the nuclear fusion, all of that. Both the zircon, the pristine and the broken zircons are created simultaneously. And then giving him all that, I then would like to hear his explanation about why we cannot radiometrically date the pristine, unbroken zircon. I don't think that I don't know. I would be curious to hear what he has to say about that because, again, the pristine zircon is not going to be forming with any significant amount of lead present in it.
And it's not going to be contaminated over time.
Yeah. So you could still completely use that unbroken zircon to radiometrically date when it was formed. It was just funny that every single time we tried to ask him his logic behind just the broken versus the pristine zircon, every time we tried to ask him about it, he goes back all the way to the creation of all the elements on Earth from water. Like every time he tried to answer that.
Yeah,
I'm so curious where things lighter than oxygen came from. I guess the hydrogen separated out and also fused.
The issue with if the Earth was a big ball of water, or if you wish to probably say it would probably have to be heavy water, deuterium. First, you'd have to split it because water itself wouldn't initiate fusion. You would have to actually somehow get an electrical charge through it to split the hydrogen and the oxygen. Then you can actually start fusing the hydrogen to provide the initial power, and then it would go up to iron. Then where does the Z-pinch come into that? Because then you would have large streaks of these heavier elements where the lightning strikes or whatever else he was talking about happened. It just...
So
from what I can understand, from just like the TRock that I was able to speak and translate.
I'm sorry, that was funny.
what I was able to understand from that was that he was using the Z pinch and the lightning as an analogy of saying, look, when we use Z pinch to form elements, we observe them forming, and this is just in TRock logic here. I'm not saying this is truly what is observed, but he says that whenever you form elements using Z pinch, they form in roughly the same ratios as they are naturally occurring. And that's why he thinks that the elements that are naturally occurring are not the result of decays, but they're the result of a Z-pinch-like process, and or then he just abandons all that and said that they're from nuclear fusion from the water Earth. That's what I was able to understand, but I don't know if anyone truly understands the machinations of TRock's mind.
Yeah, not taking into account of how large the body would have to be. First, like I said, you'd have to have an electrical charge to separate the hydrogen and oxygen, then start the fusion. Where are the byproducts? But then if it was all due to fusion, that would get you up to iron. Then why do we not have far more iron than we actually do? And why do we have such a large amount of radioactive elements? Because there just wouldn't be enough energy within the system to be able to do that.
Yeah, regular fusion. You need supernovas for that nonsense.
Well, you see, in your little physics equations, you guys are not factoring in the most important source of energy of them all. God.
If you say God, yeah, I'm gonna strangle you. Seriously.
Grayson.
Okay. You can kick me off the stream now. It's
Sorry,
getting
Grayson,
late.
please
I'm
see the
about
link
to.
I
My
posted
hands
in
hovering
chat.
over.
Yeah. Sorry, actually, Mark, would you mind playing the link I posted in chat?
Oh yeah, sure.
Just my response to that.
I just want to know how many gigawatts God's finger Sterling this primordial ooze added. That's just what I want.
What do you want me to play?
The latest link I put in the chat.
Oh, at Grayson, yeah. Gotcha.
Wait, I can answer that, Pat. I can answer that. It's 1.21 gigawatts.
I was hoping that would be your answer.
I was thinking it, but I'm like, it's the wrong reference.
It's never the wrong reference, okay? Back to the Future is always the right reference.
Yeah,
that's true.
Going back to it, you would have to start with a body probably about the size of the sun to start with that sort of fusion that you'd need.
Yeah, sorry, Grayson, this is my response to what you just said. I hate it. I hate it.
Wow, the stream is really turning against me.
Well, I mean, it's kind of just
like,
okay, it's okay to say that, but where's the evidence for God doing anything? You know, it's just any kind of issue, even the slightest, smallest issue with the methods we provide. It's sort of like, oh, well, now we just don't trust it. But there's nothing for God. Nothing's presented. Nothing's, you know, I don't know. I'm just
trees,
salty,
Mark. Look at the trees.
Oh, shut up.
Okay, I'm kicking myself off after that.
Yeah,
no, it's okay. It's just, yeah, no, I gotcha. It's just, it's frustrating.
Where was the byproducts? And that's one of the big things I asked him. Can't answer. Where is the evidence of something like this happening? You can't answer that. Where did the excess mass that would have had to have been involved to create a high enough gravity for this process to go on without blowing itself apart? Where did that go? Why is there not more evidence within the solar system of something like this actually happening? Why do we not see this happening in any exoplanets or extrasolar systems? How do we explain where we are in our orbit around the sun if we had so much gravity at the time? How does he explain the change in the gravity? Then where did the energy go and where did the energy come from?
Where did the energy Cotton Eye Joe?
I am afraid I cannot help you. Also,
what if you like just chucked it all into the sun? In fact, maybe that's what is the sun, is all the extra leftovers and the spare hydrogen mostly, but the end products and the leftover energy and all of that crap, and you just bloop, That's why the sun was made after the earth, because it's the leftovers.
That
Yeah.
makes
Or
enough sense
maybe
for me.
maybe that's just all of the water that was burned off during and after the flood.
Well,
from
you
all
know,
of
the air is different in
accelerated
space.
plate tectonics and nuclear decay.
All right, y'all. Good night. I actually am leaving
All
now.
right, no worries. Yeah, I'm probably going to wrap it up in a
His
second.
brain melted and he needs to sleep.
Yeah, well,
Really
I hope
quick
God
though,
touches you when you're asleep.
I noticed that Oso person in the chat. Just anyone know why they say the spoiled milk thing? Like, just why?
Oh, that's so weird. Like, it's so
I'm
weird.
not familiar with the spoiled milk thing.
They
there's a
say
guy
everyone
with-
is spoiled milk. They say Dok
On
Deino
spoiled
is
milk or
spoiled milk. Mark
haven't-
Reed
yeah.
is spoiled milk.
Like, one of the weirdest playground insults I've ever heard.
Oh, okay.
That's
somebody
the
is-
degree of what it is.
Someone's sort of saying that Super Chat's just there to steal money for some reason. I am so...
I mean, you don't have to give.
Yeah,
them.
wait.
Yeah.
Voluntarily
I
giving
don't-
money is
I-
stealing. Now.
Like, it's not like Mark's being that one girl on Twitch.
Right. It's not like I've even asked anybody to, kind of thing. Yeah. I'll give them money. Yeah, and I do something. I read this. It's so weird. All right. So it seems people gave money that should be addressed. Are you just accepting donations? Yes, I accept donations. Well,
Look, there is a 10% tithe to be watching this stream right now. I just
and
want everyone
also
to know.
buy my DVDs. And also buy my DVDs.
I'll tell you this though: any money that you send to the
did somebody
church,
give a super chat that I missed? Did somebody? Regius is a
no.
new member. Thank you, Regius. I really appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you, Regius. I really appreciate that. So welcome and enjoy your emotes and enjoy your stuff. I don't see where I've missed a super chat. If I have, let me know.
Oh,
There
right.
hasn't been
And
one.
right, I've been meaning to say thank you also for me, Regios. You joined my Patreon recently. Thank you.
oh sweet,
It's a donation, so I figured they'd be addressed. What they are addressed when somebody asks a question. Did I miss one? Hang on a sec. Let me go into my thing. What's it? StreamYard has been, like, as I said earlier, StreamYard's been a bit funny with the super chats, and it usually notifies me, kind of thing. So
Yeah,
I might
mean,
be off my game.
like all I'm seeing is the super sticker from Doki.
I
Edward
brought
being a
that up.
member, and
brought that up.
Regios. Yeah, you brought that up.
I brought that up too.
yeah.
everything
I've
that
been
it's
periodically
starring.
popping back into
Oh
the regular
no,
chat.
there was one. There was one. It was pseudonym here. Yeah, you're right, pseudonym. No, I got it, mate. I'm so sorry. It did not come up for me. It didn't even come up in the YouTube chat that I've got up. I'm so sorry. Hang on a sec. Pseudonym gives $20, and I wish I could bring it up on the screen, but StreamYard did not work for me. I'm so sorry, mate.
It didn't even come up in chat. That's weird.
No, it did come up in chat. Look, I'm gonna
That's funky.
I don't agree with TRock fully, but if carbon 12 is stable to that and it cuts off there. Oh, I wish I could see that. Let's see. Yeah, I brought up foreign sales. Yeah, no, nobody saw it. That's the crazy thing. Give me a second, and I'm gonna.
Maybe you could put it or like copy it and put it in.
Yeah,
quotes
I'm
in the
doing that right
comments.
now. I'm doing that right now. Where's my?
Yeah, YouTube is very drunk. Because it's like so weird.
Ooh, and pseudonym saying someone gave $90.
Someone gave $90. No.
Are they talking about Standing for Truth stream?
Oh, well, I don't know about that. I have no idea.
There was one dude who gave like $60.
Yeah, that
I'll
doesn't
ask the
surprise
same
me.
question. It was odd.
I don't know. I'm gonna try resetting StreamYard. It may kick me out, but I'll be back if that happens.
Yeah, I probably should as well. Well, I'm going to wind up soon-ish anyway, but I really want to do this because, well, just for the last section, I can't not talk to Peter. Hey, Peter.
Hey, Mark.
How you doing?
I just woke up and I saw you were live, so and I had something that I needed to mention. I thought I'd just hop in. Has nothing to do with what the stream is about, so if I'm going to derail everything right now.
Well, give me 1 second because I want to bring up the pseudonym for $20 says, I don't agree with TRock fully, but if carbon 12 is stable to the point of 50k years and unstable, carbon 14k might break 60k years and then be considered unreliable. How is TRock wrong, given it's non-biblical? Beamsy or Doc, do you want to answer that? I'm not sure if I wrap my head around it.
Carbon 12 is actually radioactively stable. It doesn't decay. Carbon 14 is carbon 12 does not decay at all. It's completely stable. It's the same thing.
Does anything decay into carbon 12? Is it the end of a chain?
Carbon 13,
Not
maybe?
that I know of off the top of my head. Let me Google foo.
Okay.
Because nitrogen 14 is the end result of carbon 14's decay.
Yeah, no, carbon 12 does not undergo a no, it's carbon 13 is also stable.
Yeah. Oh, I thought 13 was unstable, just not like 14.
Yeah, 14 is referred to as radiocarbon because it is inherently unstable. Yeah. And carbon 13 is in very, very small amounts, and about 99% of carbon is carbon 12.
Yeah. Oh, wow, there's more isotopes of carbon than I knew of. Like, there's a range from carbon 8 to carbon 23.
Apparently, carbon 12 can form in the upper atmosphere, like when neutrons collide. Oh no, that's how C14. Sorry, N14 turns into C14. Yeah, gotcha.
Ooh.
Yeah, so carbon 12 is stable, pseudonym. I'm not sure if that answers your question, because carbon 12 isn't stable to the point of 50k years. It's not. It's always stable. It doesn't undergo radio decay.
I would assume what pseudonym means is that carbon 14 is usable to the point of 50k years.
Yeah, if he was referring to carbon 14, you can get decent measurements up to about 50,000, depending on the size of the sample. You wouldn't really want to use it past 40,000, though. And again, you've got the error margins that come into it as well.
Yeah. Another thing is carbon 14, depending on what it's in, it's really easy to contaminate or really easy to disappear.
This is why you have to be
very careful with your sample acquiring.
Yeah, this isn't even taking into account the reservoir effect.
Yeah.
Carbon 14k.
Yeah. We should really just... I want to derail this entire broadcast by talking about the solar storms of 774. And
how dare you?
Ember, I know that's you.
Congratulations, Ember. I'm glad you finally reached puberty.
Wow.
Damn it.
Well, I mean, no one tell his kids. Like...
It's hard to explain.
Might have some questions for your ex, Ember.
Indeed.
What were you saying, Peter? Or
I didn't say anything.
Puberty. Oh, okay.
Oh, Pat mentioned something about solar storms, and Peter was saying something in chat about not derailing, but...
Oh, and my dog was saying something in the microphone because on raw something. I mean,
okay.
my dog picks up bad habits from Falcor. I'll apologize.
Have you? Did you forward my email to Aaron?
Not yet. So we're going to do a show later today, but
okay.
So it's about geology. So I'm not sure if Aaron is will join that because he hates talking about geology because he doesn't know anything about it. But
Should I remember the rocks?
Well, thank you so much, Pseudonym. And I just want to apologize to Pseudonym because, like, I did not get what he was talking about at first, but now that I understand, thank you so much. Sorry, I've just been thrown for a loop. Why it didn't come up? I'm really, that's really bad.
Yeah, we're used to StreamYard missing things, but for both StreamYard
YouTube,
and the YouTube live chat to miss it is just freaky.
Yeah.
And Pseudonym is still saying someone else gave you $90.
No, that was Farron. That was $9.99. It wasn't $99. It was $9.99. I can see that in my list. That was Farron, and I did sort of address that one.
Yeah, that was right at the start of the show.
Yep.
Then let's see, you were saying something, Peter?
Yeah, sorry, Peter.
Yeah, Arn's thing is evolution. That's the topic that he can talk about. I don't think that he can weigh in on anything that's about geology. He usually opts out of that, even in debates. We'll say that's not my thing. I don't know anything about it, so I'm not qualified to talk about it.
Yeah, evolution, schmevolution. I mean, come on. It all comes down to kinds.
Yeah, basically.
For reference, beans.
Kinds and sorts, by the way. They're also sorts.
But yeah,
and sorts of kinds.
This is what I was talking about when I was saying I was trying to figure something out. I was trying to see if R and Raw might be open to doing another stream about the paper the origins of the diamond claim we found. Sorry, that Grayson showed me.
I don't even know if he's ever talked about that. I have no clue. I just know that he doesn't like talking about anything that has to do with geology.
Yeah, that's fair.
But I'll ask him. I mean,
that all crosses into nuclear sciences and geology, though.
Say again?
We need a physicist as well. We've got a physicist.
True.
Tapioca.
Hey, Tapioca, you want to yell at people about not knowing how to use a mass spectrometer?
I have a thing that
didn't Dr. T go to bed?
Yeah,
unless he's secretly lurking.
Oh crap! Quick, someone attack the weasel.
Yeah. Well,
I joined so Mark could yell at someone. I don't know. Maybe I could bring that up.
It's usually me that gets yelled at.
I've been talking to Rebecca, Mark.
Oh, okay. How's Rebecca doing?
She claims she's not banning all atheists.
Oh, well, that's a good turnaround.
Not all atheists. Gur gets the exception.
Well, it's kind of weird because I maybe I got this wrong, but I think that you showed me the receipts that she said that she was going to ban all atheists from her channel. That's what I remember.
As I understand it, she wasn't banning them from the channel, just from entering the room, because she didn't see it as worth anybody's time talking to people who are determined to be skeptics.
Which for me is pretty much the same thing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's... So what I told her is she came up with the thing, I don't want atheists to insult the God that I love by questioning my beliefs and by questioning the Bible. And
basically.
I said, well, welcome to the world of the atheists, because Christians never stop pushing their beliefs on atheists, especially not on atheists. I mean, they're really good at pushing their beliefs on fellow believers, because you read the Bible wrong and I read the Bible right. But I don't see it as productive. If you want to create an echo chamber, great, but that's not going to do anything for you.
Well, I think the problem is that she really wanted to have a Christian channel where Christians were free to hang out and do what they want and things like that. And she felt that atheists were driving away the audience that she wanted. And while I think that, you've got,
why,
sort of, like I said, I think there's the problem of the echo chamber and stuff. That's entirely up to her. It's her channel. She can run it like that if she wants. So I don't have really a problem with that.
She can run it the way she wants, but then don't go on atheist channels and talk about your beliefs. I mean, it's the same thing.
If you're running a channel, I think that if you're running a channel that is preventing atheists on there, I think that you don't have reasons to complain if people say, hey, you're not allowed on mine either. But I don't think it's a requirement.
That's the thing.
Well, it does seem hypocritical, but there's nothing stopping someone from being hypocritical.
She wants to not have atheists on her channel, but she hopes that she's still welcome on atheist channels. That to me is it's hypocritical. I don't get it.
Well, you got to understand, after she and Cell broke up, she's in a very vulnerable place, and she needs people who actually care and have real compassion and empathy, which is why she's seeking out atheists.
As if Sal is well known for his empathy. I mean,
I don't know much about Sal. I don't know much about him at all. I really am not going to comment on that. No, I don't know. Like, you can. I personally wouldn't bar her from my channel, and if she wanted to bar atheists that ask too many questions, then that's up to her. It's just, I mean, I see it as hypocritical, but I don't have a problem with it.
I see it. I take it as a personal insult that if a Christian says that I don't want to have you on because you keep insulting my God, I can't insult a God that I do not believe in. If I question his existence, that's not insulting a God. If that's insulting a God, then let him show up and show me that he's real. It's not my fault.
God, if you're insulted, please come down and spank Peter for us.
I mean, if the Bible is supposed to be true, God wants everyone to come to him, then he shouldn't hide. Because that's just stupid. That's what a 5-year-old does.
Someone for Beamsy's pleasure. May God strike me down where I stand.
Next time, bring your A game.
It's just, I mean, I don't get the whole thing.
I mean, historically, that's how Christians made their bona fides when they were denying the gods of Rome, right? Like, the whole thing was like yelling at the statues of the Roman gods. And again, if it was good enough for ancient Christians to insult gods, why isn't it okay today to insult their God? It's kind of a funny metric.
Yeah, I mean, what I think, it's 2023. It's about time that we have conversations about beliefs, about religion, and just cutting that off, I think, is silly. We need to figure out a way to get along with each other, and if that's not going to be possible, then we're doing it wrong. I don't care if someone is a Christian, wants to stay Christian. What I think is that we need to have a conversation where we at least can agree on the fact that we're not holding other people to our own standards if their religion provides them with different standards. I mean, it's I don't have a problem with you following the Bible and not sinning, whatever the fuck sinning is. I don't have a problem with that, but don't put that standard on me because I don't hold to your holy book. And that's the conversation we need to have.
What's sinful is what I find gross. Obviously, that's wrong.
So the big question, and you're sort of, I think, 2 weeks too late for this conversation that I had on my channel, Peter. I'm not sure if you were here for it. Was how do we converse with one another? And I think the big question that I raised was, how do we tell the Christians in a way that is both respectful and kind of sensitive that they're not the special people anymore? How do we communicate to them that they're not this? They don't have the moral high ground. Their beliefs have no more weight than anybody else's beliefs, and that they're just another part of society that isn't privileged, to use that word anymore.
I've actually put a lot of time and effort into this question, Mark, and my ultimate answer was neener, you're not special. That's
okay.
Well, I think
I'm not sure if that falls under the respectful and everything. Like, we respect your beliefs, they're just not special beliefs kind of thing, right? That's really what I want to convey, that your beliefs are just as special as everybody else's, but they're not special. You know what I mean? Like, that's
they're
really
not
what
the
I
default.
want to get across.
I mean,
but
I think for the most part, the ones that are online, I'm not trying to paint with a broad brush here. Most of the Christians, the online Christians with a Christian channel, they will see that as an insult. So my approach is to just have conversations with them without being insulting, without putting them down, but just questioning their beliefs and basically using the street epistemology method loosely.
Yeah.
I think that is still the best way, because if you can have an interaction, that at least makes you equal. And then if you're equal, not one party is special anymore.
Yeah. No, and I agree with that. I think that's very.
Yeah, I like what you're saying, Peter. But
they could say the same thing about us because we adhere to science, and so what makes science so special, and what makes you special because you believe everything the scientists say. I mean, it's yeah, okay, but it's the same argument back and forth. They claim that praying to God gets results. So there's it's a moot point to discuss. What we need to do
no one's
is
forcing anyone to take science classes, kind of thing. They can go off and do their homeschooling and whatever. It's just, if you want to be employed in a STEM field, then well, good luck on that one. There's a reason why science is put in such a huge light in education. It's because it gets the actual results that we're after, and sort of everything from corporations to industries to everything requires those results. That's why they use it. If we could pray for innovation and technology, we would have by now, but it doesn't work.
And I mean, I like what you guys are saying, but hear me out. Mandatory after school Satan hour. I feel like that might clear up a lot of issues.
Okay, that's just hilarious. That's just hilarious. I'm sure the Satanic Temple would be all for it.
Well, it is research.
So it wasn't mandatory, but did we just have this whole thing where?
Oh no, I'm saying make it mandatory.
Kids had this after-school project that turned out to be some kind of hidden proselytization method, where it was entirely Christian and focused on the Bible, and then the Satanic Temple came up with a satanic after-school project, and then everyone got really, really, really mad about that.
So the thing is, the after-school project that they had was it sounded very good. It was like respecting yourself and how to, develop confidence and how to keep yourself safe and ways to, interact. Like, it seemed very, very good for children. So I don't.
It was very good. The only thing wrong about it was
Satan attached to it. That's the only thing.
Well, that's the point, is to get people to talk about it and whatnot. And they'd only bring it to school districts where they instituted some form of either curriculum, Bible study, or after-school Bible club, like the Good News Club or whatever. As soon as the school district crosses that line and says this religion gets a seat at the table and no other does, then the Satanic Temple would come in and be like, hold on now. You can't do that, my friends.
I wonder what plans the Satanic Temple has for just Florida now.
Oh, yeah. Florida, what the Satanic Temple has planned for Florida. Because they're implementing
Florida
a whole
schools
bunch
can now play PragerU videos.
Yeah.
As legit
found that out.
educational material.
I imagine that they're going through Iron Raw's back catalog and preparing to get them certified as educational material.
Ra has a channel with educational material aimed at specific grades in school.
Yeah,
not
a
on
lot
his,
of great stuff there.
It's not on his normal channel. It's on his channel specifically made for that material.
Yeah, but I mean, even on his normal channel, like, he has lots of great educational stuff.
Well,
like the
PragerU
systematic
doesn't just have a
classification of
religious
life
basis.
is still fantastic.
Well, PragerU doesn't just have a religious basis; it has a right-wing ideology basis. Like, it doesn't just sort of propose creationist stuff, which would be bad enough. It definitely proposes the whole idea of things like against Black Lives Matters and against these organizations, and it sort of calls out, cast shade on climate change and things like that. Like, it has this overarching sort of worldview that leans very heavily right wing, incredibly heavily right wing.
You could argue that the political side is the point and the religion stuff is secondary. That's why they have both Christians and Jews, why they have both older people and young Earth creationists like Stephen Meyer showing up, and Ben Shapiro, and what's his name from the Daily Wire that publicly talks about genocide. It doesn't matter. The religious stuff is just a red herring.
It's just part of their conservatism rather than their religion is the central thing. It's conservative talking points that is the whole, and religion's just part of that. Yeah.
And in a way, they're kind of giving the game away, because the entire point of the religious right movement that started in the United States was to use religion to control people into becoming right-wing voters.
So just to scare everyone to death, have a look at this.
But yeah, Aaron is an anti-PragerU for the Satanic Temple. Just a little bit of reworking. You just need the Satanic Temple logo with the 3 orange dots like PragerU has.
No, this one is specifically made so people can't criticize at least his appearance. So Aaron doesn't have long hair in these videos. He's wearing a suit in pretty much every single video. It's aimed at school children, so let's not scare the school children with his Disney villain look. Let's take it the right way. And these are pretty good videos. I mean, but not a lot of people know about the Living Science channel. And I don't think Arn has made a lot of videos lately, that particular channel.
Yeah, I mean, I've gone through it. Like, a lot of good stuff.
The last one is six years ago. But yeah,
thanks, Andrew.
Those are supplements for any kind of education. So there's a lot of stuff on there.
Okay, well, that in mind, I'm going to wrap it up. Thank you so much, everybody. It's been a wild one and a wild debate, and good work, Doc. I know it frustrated you at the end, but you really did lay into him on the stuff. It was really good. You sort of had answers already for what he said, and I mean, it's TRock. Some of the stuff that he said, like, so today we found out that the Earth was a ball of water that experienced fusion for some reason that we don't
And
know
the
why. And I'll
evidence
be
for
looking
it
forward.
is in the Bible, and that's all the evidence you need.
Basically, yeah. And I'll be looking forward to TRock's paper on fusion ball, water Earth, water world. That's what I'm going to call it. I'm going to call it fusion water world. The Earth is a star. Yes. No, absolutely, Jackson. And it was
like
great to have you on. Thank you so much, Jackson and Pat and Dok Deino, of course, Beamsy, Ember, Peter, thanks for coming on. Who else did we have on here? We had TRock on. We had Jackson Rowe came on.
Yep.
Who else did we
Andrew.
have on? Andrew coming. Yes, thank you so much for coming. See what I did
Grayson.
there? Grayson.
Oh, yeah,
Grayson
yep.
was on. Yep, absolutely.
And Dr. Tapioca Weasel, of course.
And Dr. Tapioca Weasel, who wants to debate for some mad reason I cannot fathom. Only insane people want to debate creationists. It's clearly a mental deficiency that I'm hope he'll resolve at some point soon. So thank you so much, everybody. I apologize if I missed anybody. I hope I got everybody there.
What, Mark? One last question. What's worse, you think, than debating a young Earth creationist?
Flat Earthers.
Well, what about
both?
Well, no, I want to keep it in religious debates.
Mormons?
Religion. I'd go with presuppositionalists.
Ew.
Yeah, that's probably true. Actually,
and you know what my new favorite one is? It's a guy who claims that God chooses his own chosen people, and that if you're not chosen, you will go to hell.
Are you talking about Emmanuel?
No, and that no one can, if you're not chosen, there's nothing you can do to be chosen. And he has a YouTube channel where he brings people to Christ.
Are you talking about Calvinism or something?
No, he's not a Calvinist, but he believes in predestination.
Okay,
it's weird.
Who was that? Like a Armando Calvo or whatever it was that
Christ righteous.
Don't bring him up.
Plagiarism on two legs.
I talked to him several times. Every single conversation that I had with him, he deleted from the channel.
Of course.
Literally everyone. And then he created a Discord server, and I jumped into the Discord server, and then he never came back to his own Discord server, claiming that he didn't have the password again. And so he made a new Discord server. So I dropped the link to pretty much every atheist I knew. So in no time, it was filled with atheists. So he abandoned that one.
Oh dear.
It's always a fun time when you're so convicted about your righteousness that you run away from every freaking challenge.
Yes.
Is anyone else tempted to introduce Peter to Ultimated?
No.
I talked to Ultimated. I think the first time I talked to him was about 2-3 years ago, I think.
I'm scared to ask who they are.
He's the presuppositionalist.
Well,
that's Beamsy. That's a fallacy. That's a fallacy.
That's an informal fallacy at a semi-formal debate.
Yes.
Was he like the bastard child of Sam and Whitsett?
/ logical fallacy /
You have to accept my premise 1.
No, you've got to up tilt the end of it, so it's my premise 1.
This is a guy who can't string
enough.
This is a guy who can't string along one sentence without the word fallacy in it to everything you say to him.
So what I'm hearing is he's the bastard child, Whitsett gets it, and Sam.
Worse. He's
worse.
Sai 10's grandson.
No. So he's not even half as intelligent as Psi 10. Psi 10 is pretty intelligent when it comes to that. He's dishonest, which is why when I had him on my channel, I started off with the video that basically where he was saying that he didn't found God, he found Google. And that's where he found presuppositionalism because he lost every single debate. He was dumb enough to upload that video to his website and then took it down when he realized what he did. And yeah, I have a copy of that video.
How can we mention Ultimated without mentioning his relationship with God?
Oh, we were saving that.
His sexual relationship with God.
Yes.
This is that guy?
Yeah,
that's
his
proof to the Bible.
What?
All right. Well, you're gonna have to leave it there. I've got to debate with him.
Okay, wait.
Tune in next week for more juicy details.
Absolutely.
And not even to Songs of Solomon, which
I know.
I mean, that I could get. I mean, if you're reading a Bible verse that is clearly about fellatio or cunnilingus, I get that. That would be masturbatory material, but that's not what he's using.
No.
When he was
using.
All right, guys. Well, I'm going to call it quits. No, Beamsy, no. I'm
yeah,
call it
before you get demonetized, Mark.
For more things. Yeah, absolutely. Bye-bye.